All right, so we're going to go ahead and begin at September 22nd, 2025, starting off the fall with a very Psyop-rich environment. And today we're going to go over the Charlie Kirk Psyop. And by Psyop, I mean obviously psychological operation, inferring here that it isn't real as televised. And we can debate the various aspects of it, but I think enough questions have been raised to push back the burden of proof upon the media that has sold us the story. And if at any point somebody has anything they want to add, just let me know in the chat and I will unmute, or I think you can unmute yourself. It's not a big deal. And for anyone who isn't able to stay for the whole thing, I am recording it, so no one's going to miss this. But I don't want to spend a lot of time rambling, because we do that all the time. But I want to focus on a lot of the visual content and otherwise anything else that we would like to put on the screen. So I am screen sharing as well. So I think we have enough to begin. So let's go ahead and start here. And people will be jumping in throughout. That's fine. Let me just one more time. I'm going to do a test on the chat, make sure everyone can see it. All right, so let's go ahead and start. Now, let's begin with some of the meta script clues that I pointed out, because these have been building up. And the terminology here, most of you are familiar with, but people who haven't heard this, meta script is the term I use to describe the scripted events that are superimposed upon our history and which are treated as real, unquestioningly so. So if you look at any textbook, it's going to be the mainstream version of events. And these are the events that are informed by the Psyop entertainment complex, which is the term I use instead of military industrial. I think that the real power is the media control. And when I say media, I obviously don't just refer to specific media corporations, but I'm talking about the media ecosystem that we all inhabit, our shared consensus reality, plus our consensus mediation, the things that the most number of people agree upon. And those who agree with everything are in the category of the programmed. If you're going with the script, if you go with the ChatGPT version of events, the mainstream version of events that has no skepticism built into it, you're programmed by definition. And so for the majority of people, Charlie Kirk was assassinated on 9/10. And the conspiracy theorists are crazy for thinking that somebody other than the shooter that the media pointed at is the one. And all of the conspiracy theories still operate on the premise that Charlie Kirk was shot. I'm not beginning at that as a starting point. That's what separates us from the majority of conspiracy theorists out there. Well, we're not conspiracy theorists. We are merely adding on additional information to have the most possible info to back whatever it is that we're asserting. And if we don't have enough information, we're not obligated to believe it. And you can suspend judgment as long as you like. As a skeptic, you're under no obligation to believe headlines. But one of the things that had me questioning this at first, because, to be completely honest, it looks real. I mean, it looked real. At first glance, there wasn't a lot of reason to think it wasn't real. I mean, it's like, first of all, it happens in front of a crowd. And so you might think, well, how could that be faked? Well, then you have to remember what kayfabe is. World Wrestling Entertainment is built on this idea of simulated violence that is convincing enough for people who know it's fake to suspend disbelief and enjoy the show. And I'm suggesting that this is kayfabe. And we also have to look at these as part of a continuous script. These are all taking part in the same fictional universe. They have the same production company. That's why I allude to a complex, a Psyop entertainment complex. So the same, quote, production company, which is an aspect of media that did Butler, Pennsylvania, which we have diagnosed as a hoax, are clearly behind this. There's not a separate entity for psychological operations that benefit the left or the right. No, it's a singular entity. So these aren't anomalies. These aren't, as I often say, these aren't just fake trees in a forest. No, it's a forest of fakery. And that's a big paradigm shift to go from cherry picking events you think are fake and believing everything else to recognizing that no, we're on a world stage that has fakery built into it, baked into it, systemic fakery. And a great starting point is this, because this is where I begin. So I was watching the show on Hulu called The Tempest because somebody pointed out to me that The Tempest has a scene with a Charlie Kirk-esque character who gets shot in the neck in a church. And it happened to be released at the exact same time that Charlie Kirk was shot. So I'm going to play this clip, Charlie Kirk and the Tempest Metascript Decode. It's about 2 minutes. And then we'll go from there, because this, I can assure you, is just scratching the surface. All right. All right, so I go through a few quotes here to emphasize what is the point of this. It's about controlling the media ecosystem in entertainment as well as the quote news. And the entertainment reinforces the news. History is a version of events that people have decided to agree upon. Napoleon Bonaparte, who may be a manufactured historic personage in much the same way that the other world stage characters or actors that we frequently discuss are. But people ask, why would they fake it? Why would they do this? You know, and the answers that truthers have had traditionally have always fallen flat. Like, why do they do it? Oh, it's a blood sacrifice, or it's reptilians, or they want your louche energy. No, the reason they're faking this stuff is that it's total creative control over worldview to the man, to the person. We're talking about global, quote unquote, global mind control. That's why this is built into what media is. So again, let's go back. We're looking at Charlie Kirk and the Tempest Metascript Decode. So the big thing is the show comes out and the leader of the New Republicans is shot in the same spot where Charlie Kirk is shot. You could connect Kirk, which means church in Scottish, to this, and it's in front of an audience. This was released on the same day, very popular. This is not something that we're strangers to. But the thing is, this isn't, quote, predictive because this came out the same day. So now this is an eerie coincidence, as the media would call it. But now let's go a little deeper into this. So here was Charlie Kirk 4 days before. So he's at Build Up Korea 2025, 4 days before he's shot, and they're all praying for him. And this is the Build Up Korea 2025 is essentially part of the political organization that the television show The Tempest is based upon. And I'm playing this so you can get an idea of how he is not just a political figure, but he's been turned into this religious martyr. And as you can see here, there are thousands of people praying for him. And this has been the theme of Charlie Kirk since this shooting has happened. So now I have more detail about that. So let's look at my clips here from Perplexity. So the New Republicans in Hulu's The Tempest are a fictional party based on South Korea's real-life conservative movement. And the character is assassinated, which triggers the events of the show. It's not a direct copy of the organization, but it draws inspiration from real-world parties like the New Korea Party. So now here we have Charlie Kirk, days before September 6, 2025. Kirk, a prominent U.S. right-wing activist, founder of Turning Point USA, visits Seoul to speak at the Build Up Korea 2025 Conservative Youth Conference. This event is closely linked to the New Korea Party. So he's at this event linked to the New Korea Party, which is the basis for the New Republican Party in The Tempest, where his corresponding character dies. Now, this is just referencing what happens on episode number 1. Deeper into the show, because it's about his widow, it's about who takes over after he exits, it goes deeper into the clues. So here you have Charlie Kirk's assassination unleashes a global groundswell of support. Erica Kirk vows to carry on his legacy. So in The Tempest, the widow takes over. And as we go deeper into it, now episode 4, it gets a little more strange or eerie in terms of the coincidences. So let's look at a couple of other things as well. Stephen Miller at the Charlie Kirk Memorial referenced a speech from 1930 Goebbels for the funeral of Horst Wessel, 1932, A Storm is Coming, where he's talking to the audience about how Erica Kirk is the storm. He calls her the storm. So that just reiterates this Tempest theme that has been superimposed over this real life event. And Tempest is not like some minor show. It is heavily promoted. It's like I put in that video, #1 release Hulu and Disney. Now listen to this. Stephen Miller, top advisor to Trump, gave a fiery speech where he cast those carrying on Charlie Kirk's legacy as warriors fighting evil. Now, keep this theme in mind, warriors fighting evil, whenever we get to the conversation about Valhalla. So on the day Charlie died, the angels wept, but those tears would turn into fire in our hearts. He goes on to say, when he sees Erica Kirk, Charlie Kirk's widow, quote, I'm reminded of a famous expression, the storm whispers to the warrior that you cannot withstand my strength. The warrior whispers back, I am the storm. Erica is the storm. We are the storm. So this terminology right out of the show is referenced again. And I'm on episode, I believe, 4. But the end of episode 3 is where it again matches up with what's happening in the real world. So here we have Charlie Kirk's widow elected chair and CEO of Turning Point USA. Well, that's exactly what happens in this show. The character takes over. And a number of people have suggested, quote, she had her own husband killed. Funny how people are quick to jump to these predictable conspiracy narratives, but that is actually brought up in The Tempest, where the relatives of the assassinated leader think that the widow had something to do with it. But now in the next episode, she's being coached. She's given a speech because she's now the widow who has to set herself as the leader to her constituents. And she's told, you're going to have to show vulnerability. So they write her a script. And in the script, it has what they call the triple axle. The triple axle moment is the moment when she cries and gets the audience to cry. Well, if you've been following Erica Kirk, she had that exact type of moment. Now, here's someone else noticing too much TV, the unfortunate timing of Hulu's Tempest. A scene just minutes into the plot will make you gasp in shock. Now, I didn't gasp in shock because we're always seeing this stuff. This is actually standard operating procedure. And what it says here is interesting. Sometimes TV shows resonate in ways that no one could have foreseen because the production window can stretch across many months or even years. That's why I'm skeptical of reviews that argue that the show creators are merely reacting to real life. Right? They're not just reacting to real life. This is too specific. It says, that being said, the recent shoot Kirk, viewers are likely to gasp hard when they see the opening scene in South Korean series The Tempest, which premiered the first 3 episodes this week. A South Korean politician is shot in the neck, killed early on. It's graphic enough that it will resonate when viewers watch the death. And this is such a common thing. We saw this leading up to the Trump shooting. A lot of content in the media ecosystem was predicting it. So now look at another overlap. Widow of assassinated right-winger vows to carry on the fight. The widow of Charlie Kirk pledged Friday to carry on her husband's work. And now here we go back to the Tempest. Gianna June decides to run for president after her husband, the original candidate, is assassinated. She steps into the spotlight driven by her loss and the need to uncover the truth. So again, she gives a speech where she cries. And interestingly enough, because I'm trying to watch this stuff with the awareness that it's likely containing seeds of the future. It's going to give us hints about what's to come. And after she gives that speech and has her moment where she feels vulnerable and cries and everyone cries, it cuts to a submarine. And when it cuts to the submarine, you see the submarine launch a nuke into the air. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And I think this may tie into some of the Kraken symbolism that has come up around this. But again, I'm just pointing out the overlaps between this event and this particular TV show. But we're going to also go into the current programming, or rather predictive programming, contained in the Turner Diaries next. So if you're in the chat and you have anything to add, does anybody not hear audio from the clips? Let me go ahead and work on that. Did we not have audio there? If not, I can play it again, but it would be helpful to know. We'll just continue on, assuming that there are no problems.
Some of the video has audio.
I see. Okay, so here's an interesting one too. The interview with Erica Kirk mentions that her mother works for Homeland Security, Department of Defense. That's why they chose Phoenix. Phoenix is actually a kind of an interesting location for that funeral event, which we'll get into when we talk about the King Kill 33, where there's this article by Shelby Downward that goes into the symbolism of the assassination of JFK taking place at Dealey Plaza on the 33rd parallel. But now let's get into the Turner Diaries a bit, because this is another huge part of it. One of the reasons I even paid attention to Kirk and this organization is the connection to the Turner Diaries, which is the Bible of white nationalism. It's the book that motivated Timothy McVeigh, gave inspiration for his attack on Oklahoma City. And if you go through the Turner Diaries, you'll see it has 9/11 style attacks. And it's about a guy named Earl Turner. So if you look at 2020's picture of the McCloskeys, this is something that we focused on then. This is when I first brought this up. The Turner Diaries book had been 42 years old at the time. By the way, the author was born on September the 11th, 1933. So these numbers are going to be consistent as we can see. But here we have this scene where Black Lives Matter were marching down the street, and the couple comes out to defend their mansion, their empty mansion, adjacent to poor neighborhoods. This is all class warfare symbolism, but they come out bearing arms. And someone pointed out that, hey, it looks like the cover of Andrew McDonald's The Turner Diaries, where you have the New World Order police and they're going around seizing the guns. So seizing the guns is what triggers this revolt. And if you look at the wardrobe of the McCloskeys, who became celebrities on the right for some time, and this is in the St. Louis gun-toting incident, it actually looks like they based it off the cover of the Turner Diaries, including their wardrobe. So this is a reference to a book about right-wing extremism becoming radicalized, becoming a movement, a white nationalist movement with a series of terrorist attacks. And so the turning point itself is when the protagonist gets in his plane with nukes on it and crashes in the Pentagon. So let's go ahead and go through a few more things. These are important facets to it. So there was the Waco standoff that was led by Dave Koresh, who again was 33, and he was incinerated by the ATF. They were being investigated over weapons violations. They had 1.6 million rounds. Well, 1.6 is a number you're going to see a lot. Timothy McVeigh was radicalized at Waco. He was executed at the age of 33 on 6/11/2001, 90 days before Muhammad Atta, 33, crashed into the World Trade Center. So I saw this correlation: 6/11, 9/11, domestic extremist or domestic terrorist, and an external terrorist. So the 9 and the 6 are flipped, and you'll see that the 6/11 is consistently a code for this white nationalist 9/11, and 1.6 is consistently associated with it. So then you have Alex Jones. Mike McVeigh was also radicalized at Waco. This is why Alex Jones's predominant narrative has always been, they're gonna take the guns. He used to say that gun owners in America are a firewall against global tyranny. The only reasons the globalists haven't taken over is because Alex Jones fans are there with guns everywhere. So he's maintained this line for some time. Well, it's all based on the Waco narrative. So again, Jones and McVeigh radicalized at Waco. And this has a great deal of significance. You recall he went to the Piers Morgan show after he found out that the DHS purchased 1.6 billion rounds. So he's ranting about 1.6, again, a 1.6 reference, to Piers Morgan. And he says, if they try to take the guns, 1776 will commence again. Then we had January 6th. And anybody care to guess the age of the QAnon shaman who was the face of that, who sat on Nancy Pelosi's chair? I mean, this is all very symbolic. This guy Q sent me goes in, Jake Chansley, 33. So again, McVeigh's terror plot, his attack was on 4/19, which is the anniversary of Waco, and it was inspired by the Turner Diaries. And he was also, this was kind of mirrored later. Actually, he had that another Burning Man, Maxwell's Rello, set himself on fire on 4/2023 outside of Trump's courthouse. I mean, that was another one of these incidents. And just speaking of this recurring theme of the Burning Man in Waco, Trump kicked off his 2024 campaign where? In Waco, Texas. And right before he kicked off his campaign, the night before, I believe I have a picture of it here, Netflix released Waco American Apocalypse. And in Waco American Apocalypse, even in the trailer, they referenced the 1.6 million rounds. And this all occurred at the time that Fox was getting sued by Dominion over their claims of election fraud for 1.6 billion rounds. So again, the consistency is there. The repeated use of certain numbers and symbols. Wacko, Waco. Now, this is interesting because I wrote this in 2023. Let me look at the date here because this is March 25th, 2023. MAGA goes Waco, spelled with a Q. That's how I spelled it. First campaign stop in Waco, just in time for the 30th anniversary. I mentioned that Waco is where Alex Jones got his start. And then I added on here, the Turning Point USA, TPUSA, or Turning Point, is an American nonprofit that advocates conservative politics, founded in 2012 by Charlie Kirk and Bill Montgomery. The tie-in to the Turning Point is obvious. So I was pointing this out a year ago. The siege at Waco was about weapons violations, as I said. Now, on top of it all, Waco American Apocalypse on Netflix, this is beyond eerie coincidence. This is concurrent programming. Concurrent programming is more of an indication of how rigged and monolithic media is than merely calling it predictive programming because the timing. So if you look here, this is Netflix, Waco, American Apocalypse, Season 1, 2023. So this is on Netflix as Trump sets foot in Waco to kick off his campaign. There was a lot of other things going on as well, which we'll probably focus on later, but there was some things that had to do with shooters. A lot of shootings, or shooters rather, these snipers have interesting Oswald references. So if you remember, you had the 7-4 parade, the July 4th parade, where Robert Crimo had 47 tattooed on his temple. This was at Highland Park. He had 47 on his car, and he had a Lee Harvey Oswald poster on his wall. And this was this parade he shoots up, and then it turns out that he was known for going to Trump rallies. So at this point, this is 2023, July 2023, I said, Lee Harvey Oswald has entered the world stage. And then a year later, Trump gets his. But my point being, they put all the characters on the world stage before they, pull the trigger. Now I'm going through my comments here. There's quite a lot to dig into with this particular event, but if you may recall, this was 4 days before Shinzo Abe, or Abe, like Abe Lincoln, Shinzo Abe, former prime minister of Japan, on July 8th was assassinated. So there's quite a bit out there where they set the stage for what's to come. And the Lee Harvey Oswald comparisons to the Utah shooter are already out there as well. All right, so let's move on. Enough is enough. Charlie Kirk's final YouTube short. So this is the Illuminati playing card with the message, at any time, at any place, our snipers can drop you. Have a nice day. Many have commented on this since 2020, how it looks like Trump. And you see the bullet whizzing by. Well, it looks like a streak of a bullet. And when Trump was shot at in Butler, Pennsylvania on 7/13/2024, we do have a photo of a bullet whizzing by his ear, photographed by the same photographer who photographed the Secret Service agent whispering into George W. Bush's ear on 9/11 to tell him a plane just hit. So there's a repeated theme here with the ear, the same photographer. In fact, there's a lot of overlaps. The same photographer who photographed the 9/11 falling man 33 years prior photographed the death of Robert F. Kennedy, who was driven to the Ambassador Hotel by the same director who directed the Manchurian Candidate. There you go, Charlie Kirk. Enough is enough. His final video. What do you make of that? Time magazine put this out. Enough. The killing of Charlie Kirk and the epidemic of political violence. So here, and again, after Trump was shot, Hulk Hogan at the RNC said, enough is enough, when they try to kill our president. So that phrase was being bandied about before Trump was shot. Even Kamala Harris used it. But it seemed to be a phrase that was associated with snipers, and so it was taken to be predictive programming accurately so. All right, now let's look at, we'll go through a few other things before we go into the video, because there's quite a lot. This is a strange one, and this ties to the JFK stuff. So I go into the grocery store this morning, and I see this magazine, People magazine. It says, it's Charlie. It's a miracle I'm alive. Now, this is kind of funny because Charlie Sheen just put out some documentary on Netflix, and it's sort of like a comeback. He's calling it a revelation, not a comeback. But I don't think it's a coincidence that you're talking about memes, names, that the name Charlie, is put out there prominently, and then he's on Joe Rogan, the world's biggest podcast, on September 10th, and they're talking about the JFK assassination. He joked about O.J. Simpson having a lethal right hand, on the golf course, but this, to some, seemed to weirdly echo the killing on the subway by a black man of Irina Zaruska, sort of like O.J. Simpson killing the blonde Nicole Simpson. So you have him making that joke, and then they spend 10 minutes plus talking about JFK, the assassination, Lee Harvey Oswald, and then Joe Rogan's like, whoa, what happened? Is he dead? And they start talking about the fact that, yeah, Charlie Kirk was shot while they were talking about it. And so this JFK thing, here's an article from The Hill. They're already trying to JFK Charlie Kirk's killing. These are not unintentional connections. Roger Stone had said that right before the event, he was contacted by Charlie Kirk, who wanted to get him on to talk about the JFK assassination. So let's get a little bit more into this turning point before we go much further, and why I think that Turning Point USA is highly significant, because it's about this uprising on the right, similar to what we saw with George Floyd in 2020. The base. So let's meet the base, the new base, the same as the old base. The base is a neo-Nazi accelerationist paramilitary group that's training in the United States, and it's active. Al-Qaeda from 9/11 means the base in Arabic. So what does that mean? Well, it means that we have this 9/11, 6/11 connection, both correlating to organizations called the base. Homeland Security has reported that extremists are developing credible, specific plans to attack electricity infrastructure since at least 2020. So along with a lot of this has been this recurring theme of race war, black versus white, or more likely class warfare, but it's been this race war rhetoric. And a lot of it's tied to the idea of power grids going out. Dark winter. The base is a white nationalist group training. It organizes race preppers and organizes hate camps or training camps. And power grid threats have risen with, and one of the other things that has come out recently is that they've been using the AI to plot their attacks. And so the media has pointed out how the terrorists are using AI for this nefarious reason. All right, moving on. There's some parallel stuff going on that's worth looking at. So before this happened, you had the death of Austin Metcalf, which I pointed out was being treated by the right as their own Trayvon Martin. And Trayvon Martin, which kicked off BLM, was like this generation's Emmett Till, which kicked off the original civil rights. That was the black Chicago teenager lynched, and it ignited the civil rights movement. That was 1955. So the Trayvon Martin repeated that. Well, when this Austin Metcalf was killed, I said they're trying to make this into a Trayvon Martin, an Emmett Till. And it sort of worked. It got conversation going in that direction. And if you look at the rhetoric on X with that event and subsequent events, it has increased in that specific direction. So it's interesting now that you have the killing on the subway, and even Charlie Kirk had said, this is their George Floyd moment. Let me go ahead and play this, and let me see if I make sure hopefully the audio. Now, I don't know if this audio is going to play, so I'm just going to read this. Charlie Kirk and many others on the right framed the death of Irina Zaruska as a white George Floyd moment. And here's his actual comment. If a random white person took out a knife on a subway and stabbed a black girl senselessly to death, there would be massive coverage and policy changes. We saw this in George Floyd, but this has not garnered a fraction of that outrage. So this was brought up and then commented on by others like Van Jones. And here's images of Charlie Kirk comforting her on the subway. I mean, they conflated these two. And then consider this: birth dates. George Floyd, Charlie Kirk, October 14th. So we pointed out this is significant because birthdays are often significant Psyop clues, and I can point out numerous examples. But there's something very stagey about this because these represent martyrs from the perspective of the fringes of the political horseshoe. So if you're woke left and you need evidence of systemic racism, you got George Floyd. If you're woke right, well, the woke right now, and even Tucker alluded to this at the memorial event, they think this was done by Israel. And the woke right is built around Israel as the main scapegoat, the oppressor. And the left, it's built around whites and systemic oppression. So you have these parallel martyr stories. Well, since this has happened, it has been declared that October 14th is going to be Charlie Kirk Remembrance Day. And a few days later, the PR head for Antifa, they have this PR person, she announced that they're going to have nationwide George Floyd Appreciation Day to go against the Charlie Kirk. So you're looking at this manufactured dialectic. This is all by design. So let's continue here. There's a lot of things that are reoccurring because we're talking about Trayvon Martin. And right now, as we speak, even at Kirk's memorial event, you had this rapper who calls himself Trump's nephew. His name is Horatio Blow. And right now he's doing his MAGA rap, outrage as pro-Trumper. And yeah, this is the one. He raps about lynching. MAGA rapper drops N-word in racist pro-lynching song. So this rapper, his name is weirdly Horatio Blow. He looks kind of like Rosie O'Donnell with a beard. So he's out there rapping about lynching in this particular environment. And here's a clip from it. Obviously, it's in bad taste. He's at that event. He's close to Trump. Everything about this guy has been Trump this entire time. He even has a life-size Trump doll that he drives around with. So he's one of these, I believe he's just a psyop, a walking, talking psyop, because it's just so ludicrous. But the significance is there was just an alleged lynching by an individual named Trey Reed, Mississippi student. He's there at the university, found hanging from a tree. Trey Reed. So people are looking at this suspiciously because, of course, hanging from a tree, it's very incendiary. Some think it was a possible lynching. So out of nowhere, Colin Kaepernick shows up and he pays for an independent autopsy of this Trey Reed. So here you have a lynching, a MAGA rap, endorsing lynching, and now you have the guy who started kneeling, during the national anthem, a polarizing figure already worked into this entire psyop narrative, tied into the 1619 project, which 1619 versus 1776, that's the dialectic here. But his Know Your Rights Camp autopsy initiative has gotten behind this. But the thing that I think is really strange is that the victim, Trey Reed, his full name is nearly an anagram for Trayvon Martin. It's like Trayvon Martin. It's basically written into his name. So I see that, I'm thinking, okay, martyrs on the left, martyrs on the right. There's some kind of a buildup here, but it's along these specific lines. Now, someone brought this up. Clark Kent, Charlie Kirk. Charlie is the name given to Asian Vietnamese soldiers, a reference to Asian Charlie Kirk character in The Tempest. Could be. People have pointed out this Superman thing. So after Charlie Kirk was shot, the shooter runs over to Dairy Queen, which is, I guess, where you go after you do a mass shooting or a sniping. You go to a fast food restaurant. Like Nick Cruz went to Burger King. No, he went to McDonald's and Subway. Dylan Roof went to Burger King. This guy went to Dairy Queen, where he's photographed next to a poster, a picture of Superman. We noted this. We're like, okay, Superman picture. And in fact, Synchromorpheus had pointed out that he looks similar to the actor who plays Lex Luthor in that particular shot. I'll see if I can pull this image up. I'll find it at some point. But the connection gets a little deeper because after people were pointing out how unusual it is that the bullet didn't go through Charlie Kirk's neck, after Candace Owens' friend said that she saw no blood, no gore when she saw the video from behind where Charlie sat, Fox News ran with the headline that Charlie Kirk is a man of steel, that it was a, quote, miracle that the bullet remained in his neck. So now they have this Man of Steel reference, a Superman reference, and the shooter is there next to a Superman poster. Let's move on. I caught this last night. I'm watching The Tempest, and they put this. This drama series is fictional. And the places, persons, organizations, settings, and events depicted in this drama have been fictionally created. I wonder why they had to add that. One of Charlie's last tweets. Islam is the sword the left is using to slit the throat of America. This was a day before he was shot. And of course, a couple days before that, the girl had her throat slit. So what is that? Commenter had posted he thinks this has to do with the First Amendment, which we did see with Jimmy Kimmel getting kicked off and the right wing suddenly endorsing censorship in many ways. Okay, let's continue. Skydog said, what are the chances of Tyler Robinson and Tommy Robinson being so prominently featured in the news at the same time? Yeah, we're looking at these names. Like you had Robin Westman, the Annunciation shooter, who was actually mirrored in the movie Weapons. Okay, here we go. 11 days before his assassination, here's Charlie Kirk in South Korea. They're praying over him. The Charlie Kirk conspiracy theories. More than 2 million X posts reference conspiracy theories, twice as many as there were after the Trump assassination. Now, the point of this post, though, that I'm bringing this point up, is that these 2 million X posts are predominantly second shooter theories. And second shooter theories are template. They do these on every event, even with the Trump event. InfoWars wasn't talking about it being fake. No, they were talking about the second shooter on the water tower or the shooter being a patsy. And it was secretly Netanyahu shooting the guy. I mean, this is always their template. So this individual here said, farewell, conspiracy world. We had fun with JFK, 9/11, moon landing. COVID was a hoot. But at some point, that belief is a lie too. So I do see a lot of people exhibiting disenchantment with conspiracy theories, which is great because the conspiracy theories are all planted. They should be rejected. However, what we're doing here isn't conspiracy theories. We are actually mostly debunking conspiracy theories. And people make some points, like they'll say it looks real, but we have to remember every Hollywood movie looks real. Every successful lie sounds real. Every magic trick looks like magic. Okay, moving on. Even Nick Fuentes says there's a lot of these posts are sensationalism, outlandish conspiracies, just reflexive opposition to official narratives. All right, so we're gonna get deeper into this. Here's the person I want to mention, the Trey Reed. His name is Demar Travion Reed, and you can easily see in here, Trayvon Martin. It's being investigated as a possible lynching, and then you have outrage as pro-Trump rapper and country singer releases a pro-lynching song. Now, why is this significant? Well, if you look at the Turner Diaries, 1978 dystopian novel, chronicles a race war in the United States, involves bombings. It's about this turning point when Earl Turner, in his suicide attack, shifts the momentum of the revolution. They seize control over the U.S. and the world, consolidating a racist and fascist rule. The Turner Diaries is infamous for inspiring far-right extremism, domestic terrorism, including the Oklahoma City bombing. Well, in this, they have something called the Day of the Rope. So lynching is actually a part of the Turner Diary narrative. So the timing of a lynching song coming out is rather interesting. The Day of the Rope from 1978. And this is when they do mass executions of whites who don't join them. And this has also been compared to the noose displayed in front of the White House. Again, Turner Diaries refers to this turning point. Now, and I'm sure all of you have noted this, since this event has happened, every right-wing influencer has used the phrase, "This is the turning point." This has been a reoccurring theme, and it was actually on full display at this event. And I'm pointing out that this is something that indicates metascript. Now, here's Roger Stone. He says, this is beginning to look more and more like the JFK assassination and cover-up. If he were shot from the front, there would be a blowout to the rear. This destroys the FBI's narrative. And this is in response to Health Ranger, who says, there's no exit wound as Candace is explaining it. So there goes the official narrative right out the window. If he were shot from the front with a high-powered rifle, the bullet would have exited the back of his neck. So the explanation to this is that he's a man of steel. So Kirk, and this is a miracle. So he could be canonized as a saint quite easily. Charlie Kirk declared man of steel by the surgeon. Man of Steel, Charlie Kirk prevented others from getting hurt when he was shot because the bullet mysteriously failed to exit. Charlie's last miracle, deadly bullet stopped inside of his neck. So this is why I'm saying that the image of the shooter in Dairy Queen, 17 minutes afterward, posing next to a Superman poster, may have some significance. And here's that picture. And as was pointed out in our Discord server, he does have a resemblance to Lex Luthor in the recent Superman. So here you have him next to Superman. And when it comes to these things, with staged events, with psyops, you have to consider how it's like with a movie. If there's something in the shot, especially if it's something that is prominently displayed, you're meant to see it. There's no real coincidences in a movie. It's not just haphazardly thrown together. So there he is at the Dairy Queen next to a Superman poster, looking very much like Lex Luthor. But yeah, Charlie Kirk, Man of Steel, Superman, stop the bullet. So now this leads people to think there's a conspiracy, but it doesn't lead them to where we are. It doesn't lead them to think, well, maybe the whole thing is a conspiracy. To the contrary, it just leads them to think there's just a second shooter situation. which is not the same thing. Okay, moving on. Okay, now, after he dies, Cash Patel makes mention of Valhalla. So in Norse mythology, Valhalla is where the warriors, and again, Stephen Miller calling them warriors now, the warriors go to this place. It's kind of like a heaven, Valhalla, and they become part of Odin's army. After which, they go fight the final battle, Ragnarok. So this is like this kind of a temporary hideout for the warriors who make the cut. So when he said, "I'll see you in Valhalla," it's kind of an interesting reference. Well, I'm watching this show on Hulu, The Tempest, and one of the main characters, the one who is guarding the widow, is from a group called the Valkyrie Group. And the Valkyrie Group is a group of contract killers, assassins, bodyguards who do all kinds of dirty work, and he's one of them. And he ends up protecting the widow. So I'm like, Valkyrie, that sounds familiar. Well, I look it up, and it's actually in Norse mythology. These are the female warrior spirits who served Odin by choosing slain warriors from the battlefield and taking them to Valhalla. So you have this Valkyrie reference in The Tempest. And after Cash Patel mentioned, "I'll see you in Valhalla," someone pointed out that the shooter in his bedroom is posing by his computer, and on the screen is a map of Goat Island in New Zealand, which is adjacent to some Masonic lodge called Valhalla. There are people who are suggesting that this was a reference to wherever they go post Psyop to await their next mission. So interesting rabbit trail there. Let me play this. This is Erica Kirk talking about her mom working for the Department of Homeland Security. You can find images, pictures of her, which we'll go to, working for one of Trump's campaigns or one of his pageants. And then Charlie Kirk's father working as an architect at Trump Tower. Interesting connections, rabbit trails that lead to some kind of indication that these are all actors on a closed movie set. So here's Ben Wehrman pointed this out. Was it all faked? Experienced video analysts have already come out and confirmed that the original close-up of the neck is doctored. What is weird is all the footage I have when I plug it into Final Cut and analyze it, there's always blurred, pixelated areas around Charlie. I don't want to sound crazy posting it, but I work on film and footage, and something's up with the footage I screen grabbed in the first few hours, almost like the clips were doctored in some way. So as of right now, and this is a great video, full breakdown, and we'll go through many of these clips, it seems that the most likely is the squib. However, there does seem to be indications in some places that appears to be CGI overlays, augmented reality, which is plausible, but not necessary. It doesn't necessarily have to include those elements, but there does seem to be indications of that, which we are looking at. And we'll get to all these clips. I want to go through his clip because he has this bizarre scene when they're loading Charlie Kirk into the SUV, and you have what appear to be planted individuals who are curiously unconcerned with getting a close-up or even recording Kirk as they're going into the SUV, but instead are focusing outward, almost like they're closing the scene off, that they're choreographed. In fact, we have a video that just came up of the individual who was, here he is, the one who actually took the SD card out of the cameras behind Kirk, who's standing on the chair, hope he doesn't get blood on his shoes, where Kirk was shot, moves this. So they don't even treat this like a crime scene. But the same individual is then later posed, climbed up on this wall immediately after to record them running by on the way to the SUV. So there's another indication here. It just looks like, okay, how did he know to be at that exact spot at that exact time? I asked Candace Owens to explain it since she's talked to him, and this tweet has taken off. So we're going to go ahead and look at this clip. This is from Hustle Bitch on Twitter. Before standing on the very chair where Kirk was sitting when he was assassinated, and before removing the video camera and footage, something strange happened. The same man climbed the wall, perched above the chaos, camera locked and ready for the stampede of bystanders to flee from the shooting. He was ready before the panic even started. How did he know? Why is the timing so perfect? And yes, they have in fact identified him as the same guy who was pulling the SD cards out of those cameras. So are we looking at, well, now that I think about it, there was a drill a month before, and it looks very drilly, I'm saying. Earlier today on the Charlie Kirk show, the host stated he knew the guy who was collecting the SD cards, and it was talked about on Fox. They said he gave it to the FBI. So people are asking, if he gave it to the FBI, how did she get to see it? Which to me, it looks to me like a whole lot of, I guess, damage control. I'm going through my minds.com links, and there's a lot of this showing up, and I like this. These are people who have the right perspective finally. Maybe they don't call it off-world stage, but their perspective is spot on. So Morgan C000 says, the first move people make around the incident is to lock on the claim he's dead, or we know for sure he died. Once that is cemented, they shift to criticizing side details tied to it, treating those as the only things open to debate. Exactly. It's all about the false binary, where you have this alternative option that still doesn't subtract from the initial claim. Now, the individual behind him who's doing the hand signs, who spoke at the memorial, is a close friend of Charlie Kirk. His name is Dr. Frank Turek. And he was the one who was doing the hand motions. Now, a sniper wouldn't need somebody to deliver hand motions, but that conspiracy theory ran wild. And it's kind of like, to me, it seems like they want these conspiracy theories to go wild. They want you to think that the guy at the hand signs said, okay, go. So the guy with the palm gun could shoot from the side, or the person up in the building above could snipe from the side, or they could operate the camera that's really a gun. So they set the stage for a lot of different conspiracy theories to seem plausible. Now, this is the guy who did the hand signs. This is his book, Stealing from God. And what do you see here? You see the word God with the O ripped out. Kind of, in my view, this does insinuate a bullet. Then you have this one, and these books are like more than 10 years old. Correct, not politically correct, about same-sex marriage and transgenderism. So what do you see here? You see the globe shattering, the world shattering, a shot heard around the world. You see the bullet hole with the trans flag, or the LGBT flag superimposed over it. So you can already see this as predictive programming, the symbolism here. The shooter is trans adjacent, or married to a trans person, or is transitioning. They throw all these things out there. So this is done as part of that ideology, a pushback against those who reject it. Charlie Kirk was very much against their ideology, is what he calls it. So this is highly prescient, predictive, prophetic. But I don't see him saying, wow, I saw this coming. No, I bring this up and people say I'm crazy. I was like, there's no way. Like, actually, there is a way, because this was scripted to have happened before Kirk was even in that role. He says he's a dear friend of Charlie's. He was there as part of his team. Go check his page and see these accounts. So I pointed this out, and it's getting a lot of mixed reactions, but It's exactly what we'd expect. Whenever we have, this is Miri.substack. This is another one of the accounts that I think is fantastic. Whenever we have a Psyop shooting, we always have the quote official story and the official conspiracy theory, none of which represent the actual truth. People who instinctively question the mainstream are funneled into the official conspiracy theory. The two camps can then furiously argue with each other while the truth remains obscured outside the Overton window. Its proponents dismissed as vile ghouls and crazies. And I make the same exact point. I call it the off-world stage perspective, which is outside of their Overton window. Another thing that we've pushed back against is people will see coincidences like, oh, look, George Floyd's born the same day. So Bridget says, in case you're wondering, we live in a simulation. Even last year, after Luigi Mangione shoots the CEO, people noticed coincidences between the Luigi video game and the shooting. I pointed out things with the madness from the Netflix and the shooting. And their go-to response is, do we live in a video game? I'm like, no, it doesn't mean we're in a simulation. It means that these high-profile events, these historically significant events, are simulated. They're staged. So we do have simulated events all the time, but it doesn't mean we're in a simulation. It's in your head. And what's the agenda here, by the way? I think one of the agendas has been revealed as obviously censorship. And I found this to be really telling. One of the most banned comedians on earth, banned from Hollywood, banned from everywhere, used to be popular, used to be on Joe Rogan a few times. He used to date Christina Ricci. So this guy in Hollywood, popular, but then he went off the rails in terms of his conspiracy theories and his rhetoric, deemed anti-Semitic, racist, sexist, and all the usual stuff. So he's pretty much banned. But even among comedians who are fringy, they kind of outgrouped him. So he's way out there. So you would think. But after this shooting, here's what he said. This is Owen Benjamin. He said, some truth chats who are analyzing this as possibly fake. Here's my opinion. I think this happened as reported. Now, why did he go after those calling it fake and not those accusing a second shooter? Because 99.999% of the conspiracy theories are pointing at a second shooter, which directly traces to Israel. And this idea that Kirk was going to turn Turning Point USA into far right and flip on Israel, which that's been the common talking point. But he instead focuses on people calling it fake, which I think is strange. But then he goes to say, it's why I'm completely for digital online IDs to use social media. It should be legal to use the internet without an ID, but not for social media. It's too destructive and easy to rig. So we need IDs to use social media legally. It should be illegal to use social media without an ID because it's too destructive. This is a banned comedian endorsing this notion here. And I said, and I think this is the agenda. They're setting us up for the internet equivalent of COVID-19 lockdowns. Mask your mind, vax your brain. No socializing without a mask. No social media without a digital ID. Why? We must protect society from mind viruses, from disease X. I found his take to be very revealing because that is likely the agenda. South Park cancels an episode. Yeah, South Park had not missed an episode since 1997, 330 episodes, and suddenly they cancel one. So you can see here, the right has adopted what used to be considered leftist woke ideas like cancellation and censorship. South Park missed the deadline. And one of my contentions here is that a lot of people didn't know who Charlie Kirk was, suddenly did because he was on South Park. Here he is as Charlie. Here's Eric Cartman as Charlie Kirk. And someone said to me, Why do they use Eric Cartman instead of just using Kirk's likeness? Because it doesn't have his personality. And I'm like, actually, it does. Because this was a smear job. When I think Eric Cartman, and this is how propaganda works, it's association. Who do you associate with Cartman? What attitudes? Well, he's the kid dressing up like Hitler. He's the kid with the anti-Semitic rhetoric. He's the one wearing the Klan hood on Halloween. So he's the perfect person if you want to demonize somebody to use as the base character. And Charlie Kirk is then on South Park, which just a couple months before, South Park was making fun of Donald Trump so much to the point where he commented on it because they had him in bed with Satan or something. It's made fun of Christy Nome, DHS. So South Park has been a vehicle for left-wing attacks against the right, specifically kind of far-right interests. But they platformed him in preparation for the Psyop. And if you look at how people on the left responded to his death, they celebrated it. Why they celebrated it? Because they think that he's KKK Hitler. Not a coincidence. They had to elevate his presence on the world stage so he could be taken out. So, just as I alluded to Lee Harvey Oswald being inserted onto the world stage. Another hoax indicator are the immediately implementable political agendas. Things that you couldn't have gotten done. Think about how many things you get done after a big event. Like after 9/11, what could you get done? Anything. After this, breaking news, CEOs of Discord, Twitch, and Reddit have to testify before Congress because their platforms are being used by radicals to advance political violence. So this shooting is being blamed on these platforms. This is all a structured attack on our ability to not just about expressing ourselves, but it's really about, I think, controlling the flow of information. Here we have No Kings protests building up for Saturday, October 14th. So you can see them mobilizing boots on the ground. So when it comes time to celebrate Charlie Kirk's and George Floyd's birthday, there's going to be some I don't know how it's going to turn out, but it looks like there's going to be some stuff on the streets that could be, I don't know if it's going to be as bad as 2020 because the right isn't burning stuff down. They're organizing. They're organizing into Turning Point USA chapters, but they're also setting up a bunch of prayer vigils and the like. Okay, continuing. Now, this is brought up by Busy56. I alluded to this earlier. John Frankenheimer, Hollywood director, had direct ties to JFK. His film 7 Days in May was endorsed and facilitated by the Kennedys, and it was allowed to be filmed in the White House. The movie, 7 Days in May, depicts a military coup against a sitting president, a plot eerily close to the themes surrounding Cold War paranoia, shadow governments, and political assassination. So I'm bringing up John Frankenheimer and JFK as an example of concurrent programming, predictive programming, and the overlapping, this relationship between big movies and big psyops as this relates to The Tempest. Frankenheimer's most famous book or movie, The Manchurian Candidate, 1962, right before JFK's death. It's about brainwashed assassins and the creation of programmed killers. On June 4th, 1968, the day before Robert F. Kennedy was assassinated, guess who Robert F. Kennedy spent his day with? Frankenheimer. Robert F. Kennedy spent the day with Frankenheimer, who put out movies about mind-controlled assassins. Well, what happened that day? RFK was dropped off by Frankenheimer at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. He gave his victory speech, and then he was shot in the kitchen by someone claiming to have some kind of mind control. He was hypnotized, mind control. Saran. He had a copy of A Catcher in the Rye, J.D. Salinger. Catcher in the Rye, J.D. Salinger. That book has consistently showed up in the pockets of mass shooters, or rather assassins. In fact, Hinckley had that book. But again, he directed a movie about mind-controlled assassins, was friendly with JFK, and then RFK gets killed by a mind-controlled assassin, and he's there with him. Catcher in the Rye. Let me look up Saran. And then I think also John Hinckley Jr. And there's a lot of fascinating connections between Hinckley and the Trump assassination. Both John Hinckley Jr. and Saran are frequently linked to the Catcher in the Rye and conspiracy theories about political assassinations and mind control. Not guilty by reason of insanity. Upon investigating Hinckley, authorities found a copy of Catcher in the Rye on his coffee table. He was one of those. And then you have Saran, the assassin of Senator Robert F. Kennedy at 68. And he was associated with being triggered into becoming an assassin, which again is the theme that is in the Manchurian Candidate. There's some kind of a trigger for the MK Ultra assassin. So the overlap of Frankenheimer's filmography and real life assassins is what we would consider an indication that he is meta-scripting these events where media or movies and staged events intertwine.
Hey, can I chime in?
Yeah, please.
I was just gonna say, Luigi Magnoni, he left his gun by the carousel, which is in Catcher in the Rye.
Ooh, nice point. Okay, that's good. I'll have to take note of that because carousel. I remember that from the book. And there's something really interesting about the book Catcher in the Rye. Kind of a side note here. Joseph Atwill did a great breakdown on this. Catcher in the Rye does contain if you read the subtext between the lines, a Masonic initiation, and talks about this secret brotherhood that has the power to assassinate and get away with it. So there's actually this Masonic subtext in Catcher in the Rye that is worth looking at here. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Luigi Mangione is right now having his surcharges drop, so he's kind of in these right now. But he's another one of these manufactured assassins. In fact, Luigi Mangione seems to be the basis for the character in Mickey 17. And this is interesting because I saw the trailer for Mickey 17. I knew nothing about it, but I said, the main character is wearing this raincoat, like a hoodie. And when I saw that, my first thought was, he looks like that shooter. Well, fast forward a year later, I finally see the movie, and it turns out that the main character, played by Mark Ruffalo, is basically Donald Trump. He's talking about colonizing an all-white planet, and this Luigi character shoots him during a speech, and the bullet grazes his cheek. So I'm like, okay, it's weird. Trump guy gets shot at by a Luigi-like guy, the bullet grazes his cheek. So I had to see it because somebody had mentioned this. And watching it, not only does he get grazed on his cheek, but he yells at the cameraman to jump up and turn the camera back on and record him posing, like Trump did, fight, fight, fight. So they had that entire scene played out in a movie produced 2 years before Trump was shot. And then even more interesting, Mark Ruffalo has a birthday of 11/22. And Ruffalo was even out speaking about this particular event, which I also find to be noteworthy. But the fact that Mark Ruffalo played a Trump-esque character and has a JFK death date, and this also ties into Harrison Ford in Captain America Brave New World, who was born on 7/13, the day Trump was shot. And in Brave New World, he's playing a president who gets shot at the podium. These are all side notes, but the birth dates are what I'm kind of honing in on. Like John Hinckley was born on JFK's birthday. Even, Dennis Hopper died on JFK's birthday. And Dennis Hopper played King Koopa in Super Mario Brothers, who's based on Trump. And in that one, the Trump towers are called Koopa Towers, and they're incinerated. Just kind of a side note here, but there's a consistent pattern where the actors representing real world characters often have some significances around not just their names, but also their birth dates. Like Harrison Ford being shot at in a theater You could take from that Ford Theater, Abe Lincoln, or you could look at with this Charlie Kirk-esque character in The Tempest getting shot at in a church, and Kirk's name meaning church. So again, we're looking at Shakespearean. I mean, this is like Shakespeare. This is the world stage, and these are all clues.
Wasn't Shakespeare the first one that took the jab?
Yeah, the first person to take the jab was William Shakespeare. That's right. His name was William Shakespeare, and he was from Warwickshire. Even had a sister named Margaret, just like William Shakespeare. Ridiculous.
Yeah, unbelievable. And just something else I thought was again looking at the tribute yesterday. Something I've said before about I don't know, there's taboo words. Mockery seems to be, oh, you can't say mockery, blah, 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 but I think it's a genuine thing because it comes from the humor, and something you touched on earlier, I think, or someone else I heard today talking about things coming from the UK. I mean, I've been thinking that forever, just because of the colloquialisms of things that you can find in the descriptions of what they've done or the names of the people and stuff. But yeah, again, just the kick in the arse of a CGI person telling us about being more human. Like what did you say? Erica Kirk said the First Amendment of our Constitution is the most human amendment. We are naturally talking about beings, naturally believe in beings, and the First Amendment protects our rights to do so both. And that just stinks to me of just something fake in front of us telling us all about fake stuff. And there's been like loads of these stories, like well, never mind the visuals of what I started on at Fakeologist, and they cut me out. But you mentioned the missing half head of the Norwegian guy and stuff. But one of his immediate wants in his prison cell was to get a PS2. So you've got like a CGI guy wanting to play CGI games in a prison. It seems ridiculous, But
yeah, that character you're talking about, Anders Breivik, and
yeah,
that whole event. People aren't familiar with it. He was killing the children of the Labor Party as an anti-immigrant protest,
that's
which
right.
makes very little sense. But there were many examples, like in the courtroom, where his head seemed to partially disappear, kind of
They
like
managed to get a whole uniform and stuff and change,
well, just like with the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, there was the security guard whose feet were disappearing into the floor, and so this courtroom stuff tends to have these things. Like, do you know how many people were allowed in the courtroom at the Derek Chauvin trial?
No, 33.
Yeah, exactly. 33 people in the trial. And that trial was the verdict was 330 days after the event. But we find these consistent things. Derek Chauvin trial, up to 33 people allowed in the courtroom. They caught this shooter 33 hours after. The governor of Utah said he prayed for 33 hours. So there's an element of mockery where the perps are able to speak in kind of code right above the heads.
Yeah, but often, I mean, I've got various. I mean, I've tweeted various ones just to try and point it out, but it really does often come from British dialect and British kind of jokey words, and
Wasn't there
much more than
somebody
anywhere
wearing
else in
a
the world. You know?
Hey, wasn't there somebody wearing a football jersey that was 33 in the crowd too?
When Damar Hamlin, who raised $3.3 million by 3:30 a.m., when he passed out, yes, everybody was kneeling except for one guy whose name was Neil, and he had number 33. It does seem to be a joke. And at one point, I said that if you're an insider, you're going to know what's real and fake because you've had the initiated interpretation. And to the extent that we can tell a hoax,
It's easy to see, you know,
We're-
it's really easy to see first time now. Like once these things come along and you know that they're coming as a wave because they're everywhere. I mean, all there's missing from this one is the what do you call it, the big folder full of stuff.
It
Well, here
was
we-
Kyle Ritten. It was Kyle Rittenhouse's trials. The guy had the 33 jersey on.
oh yeah, that's right. That's right. And now, okay, so there's this. Cash Patel says 33 hours to arrest. The shooter drove 3.5 hours or 3 hours, 30 minutes. And the press conference was with the man who had the last name Mason. And it looks like a big G on the ring of,
Of course
and
it
this
is.
is, and this may or may not be a clue, but some have pointed out that when she's caressing his hand and his hand's in the coffin, her hand seems to be bigger than his. But in every other picture,
That's what
Charlie
I
Kirk,
put out. I mean,
yeah,
I put out what I found the last couple of days, which was Simon Shack took what looks like a quick look at it, and I didn't include some of his missives, which was basically, oh yeah, he's got a big hand and it's closer to the camera, and that's on par with everybody, you know,
you got to watch for
dwells on their
flaws.
dead people different ways. You know, it's like it's impossible to prove either way. You know, but when you do take those things and put them into consideration, it's like, and when I've been putting these things on in the Discord, Tim, I'm not absolutely saying one way or the other, but I'm just saying there's certainly a mixed media mixture of what's been going on with characters. You know, that seems obvious because there's some pictures that just don't make sense. They just don't look like human being, in my opinion. You know?
Hey
Right. Well,
Tim,
yes.
you took care of dead bodies. Why did they put makeup all over him? He wasn't dead over 48 hours when that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, here's why.
What?
Because when you're embalmed, your blood supply is drained and replaced with embalming fluid. And so, in order to make the skin tones appropriate, it may require that. But generally, the embalming fluid itself has the right tone and it can be adjusted depending. So, now here's something I should bring up since you mentioned this. On 9/10, he dies. On 9/11, being paraded around in a casket with J.D. Vance at the helm. And I said, at a minimum, this is just a PR stunt. The question is it a PR stunt with a dummy, or is it a PR stunt with a body that they managed to get both autopsied and then sewn back together and embalmed and all that in time to be transported around within 18 hours? I guess it's possible, but my experience working in decedent transport is I pick up a body, take it to the morgue, and they get to it the next day. And then the family has to be basically choose a funeral home. Yeah, they see it, they choose a funeral home. The funeral home picks it up, they embalm it, dress the body, and then only when it's embalmed can it be
They
transported.
dress the body, so they do they come with clothes sometimes and have to.
Well, that's the thing. When you dress a body, and you may not know this because if you haven't worked in it, but you actually, the pants are fine, but the suits are often cut up the back. And
Right.
so there's a lot of work that goes into it, but
Bloating and stuff.
to legally transport a body on a plane, no less, it has to be embalmed. And so I'm just saying, going from death scene without to coroner investigation, to medical
Ridiculous.
investigator, to embalming, to being displayed in that short of a time,
That's not real.
I've never seen it. I find that questionable.
It's highly suspect. And also, if you look at the photo with her and like her hands are bigger and shit, that body in that casket, that like Charlie Kirk wasn't a fucking small dude by no means. And
I
this
put
dude
I
looks
put
like a
that
rail.
I put that tweet up, and I got equal amounts of people. In fact, all of these things I left it for a week. I didn't want to do anything, and I was just talking on your Discord, Tim. And then I put a couple of things that I'd put aside in a folder. And I've got equal amounts of like just nastiness as well as over exuberance, So
Well,
it
it may or
just
may
is,
not be
it all
valid,
seems fake,
but look, it all does need to be questioned, all of it, even her performance there. But
Yes.
the
Who
timing of it.
films their last moments with their loved one and to let the world see? If it's real and she's there, I know a lot of women and they wouldn't stand for somebody recording why did they have to show that? Why? Because they
Well,
wanted to.
let me answer that. Let me answer that because this is interesting. In that movie, The Tempest, the widow is told that you have to use your vulnerability to gain credibility among potential voters. And here's what they say here. And this is episode 3 of The Tempest, that she has to use her triple axle. They said this is a show-stopping moment in your political campaign. Her mother-in-law says that you must present yourself vulnerable before the nation. This will be seen as a daring and risky move that can win over the public and secure your leadership during the crisis. So at the end of episode 3, that's when the widow is speaking to the masses and she cries and they cry, just like what we saw yesterday. So this was all done because it's building credibility with Erica Kirk and it makes her look strong. So it was done for a psyop purpose. Does that happen in real life? I've never seen it. I've never seen it.
I was going to say,
Well,
look,
you've only seen it in psyops, basically the same way. It's like when people come out, it's just unrecognizable as real life. And it happens every time. It's like, here's the husband, here's the cousin, here's the whoever. And I don't know how many people have been through death and in their families, but it's not a question of different people. It never, ever happens that way. No one's ever happy unless they're screwed up themselves. They're not going to go on camera and go, "Hey, yeah," and especially be happy about it. So,
what's crazy is all these people going, I'm Charlie Kirk. No, you're not. Charlie Kirk lived in a $6.5 million home. He was married to um, a beauty pageant winner that Trump introduced him to. And she was a millionaire before they got married, too. We're talking about two millionaires. One goes, hangs out on college campuses, stirring up shit. And the other one, I don't know what she does. To be honest with you, I don't.
well, I
Because she
just
just now got her hand in Turning Point. You know what I mean?
yeah, I just put up a tweet. It just occurred to me, but it's something I've thought for many, many, many years. It's the same thing about following TV shows in my concern or whatever, that kind of stuff. It's like when you keep getting the screens to say his name, don't say those names, because that is that's casting a spell, basically.
I
It's like,
felt that yesterday. I mean, I was like someone. I was listening to the entire thing, and it was just like every few
how many
seconds,
times did they say
Charlie Kirk.
Charlie? That would be interesting to ask AI.
Well, remember, yeah. So these could be spells. Like I think that I can't breathe was a spell, and
Yes,
and
all
when
of
you
these sayings, Tim. Like, I know you don't like, like I said before, like kind of looking at the words, but like until you do it, you don't realize that you maybe don't hit bingo every time, but sometimes when you realize that they're lined up with this is what's been given you, and if that's what's been given you, there's no way it's not. It says that for a reason, if you know what I mean. It
yeah,
must say it for a
we can
reason.
even demystify it. When you look at the topic of magic, you're really talking about a lot of things, but part of it is the psychology of influence you're talking about marketing, propaganda, covert influence,
Trickery.
neurolinguistic programming, trickery. All of these are tied into that. And so that's what we're talking about. We're talking about your own will is being subsumed into a bigger collective. Like you're basically joining in with something. And that's what they're doing when everyone is saying, I am Charlie Kirk. It's like that most
But
cultish
only
thing.
without them knowing. If they knew, they wouldn't be joining in. You know, that's the thing. So there's the esoteric thing of, I have this over you, if you know what I mean.
And
And you
they
will
cast
continue to do
these
what
spells
you know.
good. They do. Like, you find it odd, Tim, that Colin Kaepernick is back into the news, right?
Well, look, this is intriguing because he's back in the news with this martyr story, and his
The whole
significance was
martyr now.
he was the quarterback during the Super Bowl 47. And I've said for some time, Super Bowl 47 is forecasting the 47th president, whatever's going to happen. And that's when they had the blackout
11.
where it went blackout for 33 minutes. And so I'm like, Colin Kaepernick has some kind of future role. And then 3 years later, he's kneeling during the national anthem. And then a few years later, Derek Chauvin kneels on George Floyd, and then BLM begins the kneeling. So you can kind of see how these are all interconnected. And Trump is associated with 1776, which is
And
the
how
MAGA.
long is that? How long? It just off the top of your head, from start to finish, and we haven't seen the finish, but the kneeling thing, like, so when was that first started? With first thing you mentioned?
Well, the first time that I think the kneeling, I think it was in 2016, 2017.
Right.
No,
So
yeah.
10, like nearly 10 years, you know.
And then you got to remember, Tim, during COVID, all the Congress taking the knee during the time that Colin Kaepernick is taking the knee, right?
It was kind of like after he had left the spotlight, but that gesture had been picked up again, and it was picking up by the same people who believe the same cause, because the cause was kneeling against systemic oppression. So
And
there's
every single one of those images looked fake as fuck, you know.
now the fact that he's back on the world stage ties into this dialectic, because he represents 1619. He represents this other version of America, BLM, versus now what is White Lives Matter, WLM. And that's what Charlie Kirk represents. It's the opposite pole. And I'm like, this is what, 5 years later, but it's kind of a strong mirroring of what had occurred. That the birth dates are highly significant.
Check this out. I've been I've been meaning to post this, or waiting to talk to you, dude. How about that? But you know how the CK is all in the news, right? Charlie Sheen, all that shit, dude. But anyway,
Theo Vaughn's first person back was Louis C.K.
that's what I'm getting ready to say. Louis C.K. is making a comeback. He's on all the fucking podcasts and shit right now. This C.K., I don't know what it means. China, Korea, whatever it is. It's out there. The C and the K is running wild.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And that's why I brought up Colin Kaepernick, because, again, in 2020, he was turning 33. And CK, 11-3. It just seems like more code. It definitely seems that way. And I had noticed it. And Charlie Sheen showing up out of nowhere puts the name Charlie in everybody's frame of reference. Charlie's back. And then I went to the grocery store this morning. I see People Magazine. And it's like, Charlie, I'm alive. It's a miracle. I'm like, what the heck is this? And he was.
And I've actually been looking out for. I spent a couple of minutes looking for what possibly could be coming or previous with an FU, just to put the FU with the CK, and you know,
Okay. Yes. No,
it wouldn't surprise me, you know, but I haven't seen anything obvious.
But so the point of it is, we're looking at media as a closed echo chamber, a closed informational system. So if something is being promoted to the mass audiences, it's intentional. So there's a reason why The Tempest was timed with this. There's a reason why Charlie makes a comeback just as Charlie becomes mainstream and gets killed. And there's a reason why Charlie Sheen talking to Rogan about JFK as Charlie gets killed. I mean, this overlap is by design. They're
Yeah, the
communicating to us.
JFK thing is it's just like a quick version of what took like 17, 18 years, you know,
And so,
just like
okay,
compacted in one.
we didn't see the Zapruder film for like 12 years because it took Geraldo Rivera to air it. So people were just going off of reports, and then later got to see it. This was real time, very much like JFK. And here's what Roger Stone posted the day after. He said, 7 hours after or so, he said, just recently, Charlie Kirk invited me on his show to discuss the assassination of JFK. Was Charlie Kirk brutally assassinated by a non-state rogue element of our own government or terrorists? So that's strange. It's like, hey, let's talk about the assassination of JFK the day before he's taken out. And Roger Stone, being a very prominent figure in politics in general, dirty trickster. He was an advisor to Trump. Big right
It was a
now
joke.
with Alex Jones and all the truthers. Why would he bring this up? Well, it's because they're throwing it out there. JFK, JFK, JFK.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious just from the videos that come out, like, oh, it's this guy behind this guy. I mean, it could be any number of 12 people all kicking around, as well as a, you know, trapdoor and a hologram maker. And it's like, that's what I'm saying. It's like everything that took like 14 or 15 years to culminate in JFK, they've given you in 36 hours, you know.
And you know, less than a year ago,
And they'll all do the same thing. They'll all lead to nowhere, you know.
well, less than a year ago, Luigi Mangione writes his manifesto, deny, depose, and what was the last one? Deny, depose, and delay. He put his manifesto on the shells. So this
Mhm.
shooter writes his manifesto on the shells, on the bullet casings, and he
Mhm.
put from Helldiver 2 up, right, down, down, down. That's a code for Eagle 500-kilogram bomb airstrike. So I was thinking, okay, Turner Diaries creates the turning point after their airstrike. And here we have a reference to an airstrike. So then I noticed that there's an eagle in the hand of Erica Kirk when she's at the coffin. So there's something here hinting at this turning point being right then and there. Like this is and then they start calling it the turning point. Just pointing it out.
She had the thing last night. She had a ring that was an E.
Now we have
It could have been an M. It could have been a W. But she had an extra ring on, like during the thing. I
The
saw
one they
Jurassic
all call
pointed
out is she's got a G on her ring.
No, but
which
a
is
G and either an M, a W, or a 3 or a E. You know.
Did you hear Trump call Kirk a master builder?
Yes.
There's Masonic
like Jesus.
symbolism and all over this place, all over
The
the
master
psyop.
carpenter is supposedly Jesus. They're turning him into this figure. Like, I didn't give a shit about Charlie Kirk. The only reason I knew him was I get like a video or a short, like Charlie Kirk destroys kids at campus. That's the only reason that I even know who he is. I mean,
Trump
really.
also said, I put a tweet up. He said he was a very convincing guy. That was one of his quotes. And I just put, I'm not so sure, and put a picture of his mouth because that just looks ridiculous. You know.
Do you
Okay, take a look at this
what-
on the screen. You got to see this really quick. I referenced this earlier. So you have the shooter who's like weirdly posing in his bedroom with a red shirt and a blue, which to me speaks to the bifurcated Psywar, left and right. But here he is posing in front of his computer, and people
that looked like
identified.
twins, man. It just looked like you know.
Well, look,
It
you have
looked like
here.
a carbon copy.
Somebody identified that map. So that map is Goat Island, which apparently has great spelunking. And you have Charlie Kirk being told by
That
Cash
was
Patel,
Silas that found that.
I'll see you in Valhalla. Yeah, here you have Goat Island Marine Reserve. Then you have the Valhalla Danish house. So people went down this
There's a
rabbit
Scottish
trail.
guy called Silas who calls into fakeologists.
Oh,
And
yes.
that rabbit hole goes deeper. If you go to the Valhalla Resort website, somebody had posted like August 2nd or something about how great it is, and they got a picture of the guy, and it kind of looks like Charlie Kirk with some surgery.
No.
And then, but if you go to the end of that,
Surgery.
if you go to the end of that island, like on Google Earth, there's a thing called Cave Point or some shit. And then you click the pictures of it. It's like this cave on the island and shit in the water. And then there's a picture of Charlie Kirk. Have
I'll
you
have to
seen
see
that?
that. I have not, but I'm glad you brought this up because I wanted to clarify this Valhalla thing because in the Tempest, the hero of the story who's saving the widow, protecting her, he works for the Valkyrie group, and Valkyries are the ones who escort the warriors to Valhalla. So there's another Valhalla reference built. There's a Valhalla reference built into the Tempest as well. So that's not a coincidence that Cash Patel used that, which you wouldn't expect because Valhalla is not heaven. Christians don't go to Valhalla. So I'm thinking there's got to be something else here.
What I think it is, Tim, is like pissed on breadcrumbs to make a, like, if we're smart decoders and shit, you can see this shit. People start figuring it out like, hey man, this don't make no sense. But in all reality, I don't believe Charlie Kirk was shot. I think that's all CGI. That's why the chair falls through the table. Him shooting out blood. We've slowed down the videos on other channels and showed that that blood pumps out and it gets on his white shirt, but then retracts. And like, it's crazy, dude. That how, like, everybody's like, well, there's no way. When it was first reported, people in the crowd was like, Charlie got shot in the chest. They didn't talk about him
That's
fucking
right.
having a big hole in his neck, blowing out blood. Oh my God, they shot him in the head. No, everybody said they shot him in the chest. What had happened was the guy, probably over with his sleeve, is activating the fucking charge in his chest after the gunshot, which is a blank somewhere to scare everybody. And then it didn't do what it was supposed to. So they added that blood and all that shit in the video we seen. That ain't what happened that day. I have not heard one person from the crowd say, man, he was shooting blood out of his neck and all that. No, none of them.
Well,
None
that
of
would
them.
have to, but the fact that that was the exact spot where the character in the Tempest was shot seems to be that's
It,
the
it seems
specific
a
point they had to
little
do it.
too easy.
Yeah,
It
but
seems, you know
my
what I
point,
mean?
but we have to recognize too that any eyewitness testimony at a scene this big, it has to be in all likelihood controlled. Sort of like that one person who was allowed to speak and they cut him off. That was probably staged because think about it: 9/11. All the people who had footage were plants. These are closed movie sets, and it's not like they just said, "Hey, let's do this next week. Let's make him a martyr." No,
Tim,
this would have been planned years ago.
Tim, sorry, man. I know, like, hate to hear it all, but it's a straight question. If something like this could go wrong, can go wrong, then it could go wrong. So surely the idea of creating something like this on the screens would be that it can't go wrong. And the way that you would make it not go wrong is not do it live and it having been recorded in whatever way. I know that, I lean towards what I'm seeing isn't real and it's just completely created. But at the same time, it could be half and half. And that's not even getting into the 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 guy himself. People seem to be like working on that and
Well, there's
not
a
really looking
okay,
around and seeing that it's not impossible to create a scene like that,
well,
and
we have to talk about this then because there's fakeability. Like you can fake certain things, but are they fakeable at scale? Could you fake something with 3,000 people there?
I know you've said it's
Yes.
scale, but
Well, yes,
Wait,
because like
yeah,
we're
you
not
can.
sure
It's
what
called
that
a
scale
magic
comes back
show.
on. It's always through a screen.
no,
It's
it's
called
not.
a magic show. Misdirection. Gun
Yes, it is.
fires
It
in
is.
a crowd. Like,
But
where's all the video from the people that were standing right up filming
well, we have
him
wait.
during
We
this?
have to be careful. We have to be careful about appeals to ignorance, which are I don't know
understand all that,
question.
yeah.
So like we have before you ask these questions, you have to answer it for yourself. Like, where's the video of all the other witnesses? Well, gather it, see what you can find. And what we've looked at is you can find many videos, but not all of them have a clear shot of him. And those that do are few and far between. And is it possible that those are the ones that were fed to us that were made to go viral that could have been augmented? You know, it's just a Snapchat filter. Maybe they had some plants there. Hey, you're going to record and add the blood spurt. You're all given identical blood spurt special effects. And then we're going to double check it and then blast it. So there could be a bit of a hybrid here where for the live spectacle, you have kayfabe and a bloody squib. But for the full dramatic impact, they modify anything that is going to be released to the public as official. So I'm with
So
you
I'm
on that.
seeing you as a kind of,
Yeah.
you're halfway there, you know, like you're halfway to, it's enhanced footage, basically.
Yeah, exactly, which is doable. And when I saw that chair that seemed to be floating through the table, well, either it's just bad footage or maybe it's an augmented reality chair to obscure what they're doing as they move his body. Kind of like in the ISS. They can add anything and have it floating around the room and they can pretend
Hey,
it's there.
I posted a picture in the Discord and of the shooter supposedly standing somewhere. I don't know where it's at, but behind him is a Superman poster, and somebody pointed that out during
Dairy
Gilded.
Queen.
There-
Yeah, we talked about
Right?
that. So 17, Candace Owens found that. That was 17 minutes after the shooting, has hit a Dairy Queen. And if you look at him in
Yes.
that particular photo, he doesn't look like his mugshot. He looks like Lex Luthor from the new Superman movie. And this was
But then they're saying that Charlie Kirk was like Superman, and the bullet didn't go through his dense bones.
Yep.
Yeah, which is
A man of
crazy as
steel.
fuck.
Didn't say Superman, but it said that he acted like a man. He was like a man of steel.
right. And that's so that to me is more indication that we're looking at a scripted story.
So they said basically there was there was no the bullet basically went in and didn't come out, and he held on to it.
Hey,
And
really
that's
quick,
people.
let me read a couple of comments because this is one I didn't know from Andrea. Charlie Sheen is a 2-part documentary that premiered on September 10th, discussing his Hollywood rise, public scandals, and recovery. So on September 10th, that name was blasted.
It's correct.
And then we have, she points out, this is a good one too. The huge event only took a week to plan and execute. Exactly. That to me is pretty insane. It took a week to pull all that together. I mean, is it outside the realms of possibility? I suppose. I've never planned an event with 100,000 people, but
No,
the whole
Tim, you said it best. Like, did they plan 9/11 on, like, let's say 2000? Did they start planning it then? No, they planned it when they built them buildings. So Charlie Kirk's been propped up since he was 18. This is
I've got.
all.
Sorry, man. I've got this. I did this. I think someone put it on Discord, and I started watching Rogan at the time. Because they gave a like a screenshot number of him saying something. I don't know what it was, but I've only got mine on your Discord, and it says at 3:28, which is before Rogan says a little bit of a mental illness exhibition, and at 1.5535, I wrote Rogan makes a loud sound like a gunshot and recoils. And so he did that, like he did like a like to the mic, but about something completely different. This is before, and then shortly before after that, I've just written Rogan has Charlie Sheen on, and here's about the event while discussing JFK. So there were already those little miniature signs of, you know, I was watching it because I'd heard about what happened, and so I was looking for just any kind of mentions of it. But him like doing his own gunshot was like, what the fuck? That was out of nowhere. Like it really didn't belong as well, you know. It was a bit overdone.
Did you see the thing that I posted? The cover of People magazine from today. It's a
No,
miracle. I'm alive, Charlie. It's like
what's that?
this is People magazine, but the caption here is the quote is, "It's a miracle I'm alive." And here's Charlie, and I'm like thinking, okay, again, the timing of it, Charlie Sheen, September 10th, him being on Joe Rogan talking about the JFK assassination. This is all, to me, this is all funny business. This is all very fishy.
Yeah, and I put a post up saying, in these kind of times, you know, would you put it beyond Elon bringing back Charlie just for his
Okay,
wife? You
now
know,
look at this one. So his wife, Erica Kirk, releases this video where she describes her past in college, playing basketball, her modeling career, and all this. And they show a clip. And the one clip where they show her, she's dribbling. She's number 11, and she's,
number 22.
I
Yeah,
guess,
so
22. So this is more JFK code wrapped up
mhm.
into it. And again, no
Yeah,
coincidences
that's
in
not
the
just
world stage.
33. That's like November 22. You know.
Yeah, this whole thing is JFK coded, is what I've been saying.
Oh, completely. That's I said before. Yeah, same way as you said. It's like there's, but it's like 10 years of what people would do with books piled into 10 minutes. You know.
Oh, here's some more
Exactly.
Eagle stuff. More Eagle stuff. So the shooter was wearing this shirt with the American Eagle flying over the flag, and that's the same shirt worn by the Tesla vandal from several months before. So what's going on with that? I don't know. But again, I'm just noticing and taking note of these patterns because if
And
people
you
are,
know, if you look on Rachel on the fakeologist forums, put on something, I think it was her, um, showing that his t-shirt changes like basically with every image that's taken of him. Like that American flag becomes kind of warped, and then it becomes something else, and um, it's just never the same, you know.
now I
Like
don't know
people,
if there's any validity to this, but it looks like the guy that was behind Donald Trump during Fight, Fight, Fight looks like the guy that's behind Charlie Kirk. And I know it's kind of a standard look, a Secret Service like look, but I don't know.
Tim
Even
Osmond look.
the glasses, there's something
They are
there.
all, look, it's all by design, central casting, CIA casting. It's, yeah, that's been pointed out a long
Yeah,
time
you
ago.
cast like as many guys as you could who looked exactly the same, you know, with a bald head and glasses. It's like,
But the chances that our president had this guy when he got shot, and the president knows Charlie Kirk and introduced his wife to him, looks like the same dude. I mean, there's
I
too
swear
many
to
like,
God, like I mean, I didn't watch much of it. I watched some of it on Jurassic's thing just in case something happened, and what I saw was just like people talking about a fictional person. That's how it felt. That's how it felt. How they got away with saying stuff like that, and the other side saying stuff like that. It's like if it's not actually offensive, because it can't be offensive to a sim, then you can say what you want. You know.
I
He's
go in, hey Tim, go into the Captain Kirk part of Charlie Kirk.
Well, what do you make of this? At 2:02 p.m., Donald Trump said we must pray for Charlie Kirk. At 2:02 p.m., Benjamin Netanyahu praying for Charlie Kirk. I don't know if there's much to that, but there's the sense of it being rolled out according to a schedule, and that was just another one of these
Yeah,
coincidence.
they should have never announced to the public, the doctors, the hospital, a news outlet, not two leaders that we know what's about. You know what I mean?
And then here's the
Is there
Atlantic.
any pictures of the vehicle going into the hospital? Is there anybody taking
Right,
pictures?
people are
No,
asking where's
I
the
have never.
timestamp.
You look for things that are missing, you know, the same
Yeah,
way as
missing is him going to the hospital and everybody going there, and it's a big deal. We're outside the the hospital waiting to hear what's going on with Charlie Kirk. Now there's no
Where's the
hospital.
pictures of Erica running into the hospital or any of her?
No, I haven't seen none. I don't know. They might be out there, but I have never seen him go to the hospital.
You can
And then
only cover so
miraculous.
much coverage when it comes to.
Okay, that reminds me. Then there's two other things that are missing. So the hospital stuff, clearly that's missing, but then there's like very little police response. They just wipe the crime scene
Yes,
clean like it's nothing. Like that to
they
me
got
is
an SUV and not an ambulance or anything remotely like an ambulance. You know, it's like
And there were, okay, look, when you have a
and then
big
okay,
event like this, you have like 2 or 3 ambulances outside in case somebody has a heat stroke, a regular stroke, heart
there's
attack.
regulations. There's regulations. They say for every in Utah, you can actually I looked this up. For every 250 people at the event, you got to
oh,
have
you
this.
get fined, I'm sure.
So
Yeah.
where was that? And then combine that with why wasn't there an active shooter lockdown after the shooting happened? So here you have finally a shooting that the leftists like. I mean, they're not usually they're always out. You know, it's a school shooting, it's a tragedy, but this one they're celebrating, and no one's talking about where was the lockdown, where was the police response, and why were
So
they
you
able
guys
to?
in the US, sorry, you'll be seeing more clips than I have. But how much has there been anything like piled on about stuff like more escalation on the the safety of pupils? Is there are people talking about that rather than the deaths, or you know what I mean? Like the only way to sort this out, is anyone saying the only way to sort this out is this?
Hey, look, what I think's happened is they wanted something big to happen from the Psyop. They didn't get it. So we got a big one coming. Whatever their agenda was, ain't going over.
The
It
only
It
ain't.
is.
thing
No, wait.
the
I
only thing I
have
saw
to
was
say, I have to say, no, look,
what's his Ben Shapiro saying he was definitely going out, and
these are planned in
you
advance.
know,
There was no way this wasn't going to happen. This was planned when TPUSA started because it ties into this
or
larger
like
turning point narrative.
2017,
No,
18, yeah.
they don't. Yeah, I think we can go ahead and just dispense with the idea that they screw up or that they're not winning. No, they've already won. We've been conquered. They own us in the sense that our entire worldview, we're like Truman in a show, is being established by them, and it's an
And
incontestable
it's a
power
bargaining
that
chip, you know.
is irrefutable and unstoppable. So no, we're not winning on this. They're not screwing up. And look what the Atlantic posted. What if this is a turning point? Kirk's allies will determine what the next few weeks bring, de-escalation, confrontation, or something in between. Phrase turning point is a specific reference to the Turner Diaries, and it ties into the larger narrative, and it's being echoed by all the big publications. So I'm saying that this is the Turner Diaries narrative that's being implemented as part of this larger script. And it's right on time. The fact that they're all echoing the same phrase. And this was used a number of times yesterday at that big event where every person came
Did
out
you
calling
notice
it
that Elon Musk was there? Mr. Willy Wonka himself. He didn't get up and talk, but Elon Musk was there. They
Yeah, I
showed him
saw
a
that.
few times.
Well, I saw an image.
Yeah, think about it. You run all these companies, you got all these problems. You're gonna stop and go to a funeral of a guy. He's
why
trying to
wouldn't he?
help out America.
No, Elon Musk has been a fixture of alt-right for a long time. And not only
Yeah.
that, but he was a financer of Turning Point USA and he knew Charlie Kirk. So his presence there was totally expected.
Why
Turning
didn't he
point.
speak?
Turning
I mean,
point.
think about this. Why didn't he get up there and talk?
Well, he
And
was
Turning
talk
point
about how
has the word gunpoint in it.
so here you have they're taking down the scene, scrubbing it clean, which again, this is what they do after these events. Like they even like
just like
others.
Sandy Hook. Sandy
Yep.
Hook, tear it down. They started that shit. Any kind of
Las
shooting.
Vegas. Same thing
Yep.
happened in Las Vegas.
Yeah. We just tear it up and you can't come out and try to collect DNA years later. Like they totally just like, no, this is a closed movie set and let's go.
All right, let's continue here. I want to see what else we've gone through. Now this is interesting. Wouldn't his head and arm be completely limp? So people are looking at the video of him being carried out, and it does look like there's a couple of points where he doesn't look totally unconscious. There's no blood dripping. His shoes are pure white. Like, how did he not get any blood on his shoes, on his white shoes? And someone else pointed out the guy only wore black shirts, and this is his first event in a white shirt. So it would make sense if you're trying to show the blood in stark contrast.
And the blood splatter behind him. They're
Yes,
saying the bullet stuck in him.
everything was white for like a
I mean, do
green
you think a forensic guy's going to go? Someone just goes, "Oh yeah, the bullet's still in him. All right, then I won't bother doing my job and look for blood splatter, even though there might be some." You know, it's like ridiculous. It's like TV work, man.
What I find strange are the people who make excuses for it. So it's like in any other event, when there's a crime scene, they block it off, they mark where everything is, they photograph it ad nauseum, they can model it again if they want to in a computer, so they can make sure they prosecute the person. But in this case, there's no control over the crime scene, and yet I see commenters on Twitter, and they're making excuses for it. And like,
It's unbelievable, yeah.
Now look at this video on the
But
screen.
that's not people, though. Surely that's not people. That's just like, those are just bots.
Now look at this here. Comparing the response of the shooting at Utah to the response at a mall disturbance early last year. So here you're looking at the police response, which is nil. It looks like nothing. And then there you see a mall disturbance. So the
Right.
lack of responsiveness, the lack of a lockdown.
Well, that's when the alien was in downtown, yeah. Well, you could say the same about Vegas, you know. Vegas was the same, like the ambulances by the, 2x2 all the way up the street, and not doing it.
Here's the leader of human events. This is a guy who started Pizzagate, Jack Posobiec.
He's the one that I put on my one of my tweets tonight about. I didn't know who he was.
Okay,
but,
well, he's big.
He talks about releasing, like the same way as people are talking about releasing the Kraken, and you don't know what you've released or unleashed.
Yeah, that's been their talking point.
It's been said like 4 times now.
Okay, so the unleashing, and then people have said, well, Erica Kirk, her full name gives you an anagram for Kraken, and there's been this repeated theme of a Kraken being released associated with a waterborne submarine nuke. This has been a recurring theme for about 4 years now. So it's interesting that in The Tempest, at the end of episode 3, after the widow gives her speech, then it cuts to a submarine and a launching of a nuke, like a releasing of a Kraken. But look here, this is Jack Posobiec, who he's been running the same circuit with Charlie Kirk. They're all associated, same podcasts, and he's a big voice on the right. He's the one who started Pizzagate. But here he is at the event, and he says, quote, "A century from now, when they write of the pivotal moment that saved Western civilization, they will write that the sacrifice of Charles James Kirk was the turning point." So he's writing about how future historians are going to describe this. And this has been my point. This is the reason for the Psyop, because the storyline here is now you have the pushback to save the West, the turning point, just like in the book. They're trying to save the West from globalism. They're trying to save the West from the destruction of American nationalism, basically in favor of this global thing with open borders. So this here is almost like revelation of the method, where he's saying, yeah, this is going to go down in the history books as the moment that it all changed. So this is code, if you ask me.
And just at the end, he said something about unleashing a beast.
Yeah, they've said that they're dragons unleashing the beast.
Dragons,
have no idea. Yeah, it was Stephen Miller who said dragons, and I was like, wait a minute here, dragons? How?
That's new.
Now we have, again, this is the new video that came up today by Hustlebitch. I looked at, I think it's worth checking out. It just says, before standing on the very chair that Charlie was sitting on when he was assassinated, he then runs up and climbs the wall. And the way he's recording, the place he's at, this isn't spontaneous. This is choreographed. And a month before, they had done drills at that same place. And so there's more. I mean, we're not done with this. The people who already decided, oh, it's real, it's like, on what evidence? It hasn't all come in yet. We're still waiting for it to arrive. There's more information. But here's something. Charlie Kirk trended at 3.33 million posts, along with Jesus. That was a top trend on X. This is
Oh, I need to look something up. I thought he had
here's one. Okay, here's a great point. Another thing I found, and I like this because this is what needs to happen. There's a lot of great accounts that talk about ritual sacrifices, the timing, and the eclipse, and so they really mystify it. So the people who haven't figured out these things are fake are trying to understand it, and their response, their common go-to explanation for 20 plus years has been human sacrifice. So Days of Noah comes out, and he says, here you can tell how these big accounts mislead the masses, calling a deathless media hoax a ritual sacrifice. This is key misleading disinfo that many believe in. This is a point that we've been reiterating now for a few years now, that people either go with the lower powers or higher powers explanation for these things. They'll say it's human sacrifices by satanic people, or they'll say it's because of the simulation. But truthers have never been able to figure out that these things are fake, simulated events. If they assume it's real, then their explanations for this real event have to go to these weird places like human sacrifices or simulation theories. But I'm seeing more and more accounts are picking up on this. This is a key misleading line that only big accounts use. And it's always these big anonymous accounts. And most of you know about Donnie Darkened. Donnie Darkened was a big account pushing this idea of a Trump head wound that was coming. Only this person was doxxed, and it turns out that all along he was a big MAGA guy who had an alternative account where he was basically LARPing as some doomsday prophet pretending Trump's the Antichrist. So it's like, what is it? Trump's the Antichrist, or you're a Trump supporter? Well, he was doing both, and he got called out. So this guy was also photographed with Candace Owens. So politically connected, artificially boosted accounts are pushing disinfo lines to mislead people into these conclusions that prevent them from noticing that it's fake.
Yeah, but I mean, you can see that with a lot of them. I mean, even in just the last year, there's been accounts that just come up, and even through other people who seem to, I don't want to set them straight, but I mean, you can tell them a mile away, just even half the time from the way it sounds, but again, I'm not one to say, oh, I know and you don't know. And
well,
but
you can, though. You can. With certainty.
Often it's just a question of experience and spending time with it. And
at this point, though, we have enough empirical research to say that if somebody's starting point is to treat it as real until proven fake, or if they're assuming it's real and then running down a trail, no, they're operatives, they're controlled opposition, or they're dupes. There isn't a third alternative where they're somehow justified in their conclusions. So basically, if they're towing the line that the event is real plus a conspiracy, they're controlled opposition.
It's been that way the whole time, though. Like, I mean, that's what Judy Wood is. That's what any of these, like, a million 9/11 people were. And then it just goes the same way. The bigger the event, the more YouTube channels turn up. I mean, and people just forget about things like Vegas. Like 30 channels turned up all at once, all on the same day.
Well, there has been no back until, like, really, I mean, honestly, until we started gathering this think tank on this premise, there hasn't been a lot of push. And even now, we haven't really pushed back. But I pay attention. So, for example, there's this person who covered the Vegas event, and she's always saying the shooter was in a helicopter. And I'm always calling her out saying, I'm saying nobody died. You're pushing the controlled opposition narrative. And then I get blocked. So they're not ready. look, the
So
controlled
you can't
operation.
even talk. I mean, that's what I mean. But even back then, you couldn't talk. People would just ban you and stuff. And um, I mean, I got to the point. Obviously, as I would say, that I think a lot of it was just like not only faked, but just mixed media. You know, especially look at the town you're in. You know, you're in hypnosis capital of the world. You know.
Well, it's all about controlling our conversations and controlling the flow of information and guardrailing us from certain starting points. So what they've done is they've gate kept it. And so now we're at a point where enough of us are seeing this as fake that we can break away from them. And the more of us that do it, the better. That's why I'm always trying to promote these other channels or content creators who arrived at this third perspective, what I call off-world stage, because the more of us there are, the more power we have to counter their echo chamber, which prevents people from connecting the dots. Because Vegas has everything to do with this. So does 9/11. So does George Floyd. It's a mistake to look at these events in isolation.
They're all done the same way, you know, like and you keep seeing the same, um, as far as I'm concerned, the same resolution and the same kind of footage over and over again for many decades now. You know, in fact, sometimes it's left and then it's brought back, and it just looks exactly the same. Like those Afghanis or whoever it was jumping on the plane wheels and falling off just looks like the same grain of film as it does on the 9/11 on the street footage, you know, to me.
And here's why it matters. Like, look what happens when like Alex Jones is endorsing Sam Hyde. He says Sam Hyde nails it here. Where's picture of Charlie Kirk? This is you. And then he shows Ierna, the girl killed in the subway. This is his sister. So instead of questioning the event, they're personalizing it, and then they turn it into this big
You're
religious
using
ceremony.
the wrong evidence in the first place.
So here's
And
what Sam. So Sam Hyde comes out and he says, "They're not going to let you in the club." Charlie Kirk was in the club. He questioned it. Now he's out of it. So he basically says that Kirk made a deal with the devil, suggesting that Israel killed him. So instead of being analytical about the footage, they act as though it's true. And so
yeah, you have to
Sam
find
Hyde's like,
another way out to explain the situation. But the thing is, if it, what will never get into people's heads is every situation you see, unless you're there, you're seeing it through some sort of screen, and it's as simple as that, you know.
yeah,
Can
I had
you
doubts
can't
as this
prove
one.
anything, you know.
I mean, this one I was thinking, I was like, oh, could here. So I remember my thought process on this, and I'm thinking, well, why would this be different than any other? When I saw 33 hours, it was sealed, but I was thinking, could they have killed him for real? Because a lot of people jump to that, and that's a habit. It happened with George Floyd. It happened with Christchurch, where a lot of people are afraid to just pull the trigger on it and say it's fake. So they're kind of like, I think it's real. I think it's a hybrid. I think they shot him, and then I'm like, no. If there's any element of hoaxery, you have to assume nothing. You can't just go with that. And I started asking, why would they shoot one of their own agent provocateurs? Why would they shoot one of their own actors? Like, they don't kill crisis actors. Why would this be any different? Why would this be different from
Or do
Butler?
that versus why wouldn't they prop someone up for a whole bunch of years and then take them out for a reason and use that reason forever, you know.
I mean, my point here is that it wouldn't make sense to suddenly change the pattern of fake events, fake events, fake events. This one's real. No, that's the same art. That's the same logic that would say, well,
Well, it looks the same, it
maybe
sticks
the
the
next,
same. Yeah, I mean,
maybe the next moon landing is going to be real, right? No.
everything
Previous-
but what was the thing I forgot before? When they write
like
everything out.
because Elon Musk is going to send people to Mars. Are we going to believe that when we know the moon landing wasn't real? No, this is cumulative. It's a house of cards. If the bottom layers are fake, the layers built on top of it are fake as well. So you have to remember that there's a continuity here. Every event is part of a contiguous structure. None of these are isolated. They take place within a closed system. And now, have you noticed the use of the word legend around like death fakers or fake deaths, rappers who die? They're always called legends. Have you noticed that?
Yeah,
Because,
yeah. I mean, sometimes.
well, like I noticed this was very conspicuous
You seem to
after.
become a legend anyway as soon as you die. I mean, it seems to be just connected with, death, whether you were great or not,
Precisely. But what I'm saying here, though, is that legends, the word legends has been consistently applied
Oh,
to like death fakers, to people that like Tupac, for example, or Nipsey Hussle. You'll see the word legend used in a very conspicuous way. And so I thought, we're talking about Valhalla and Crisis Actor Island. And I'm thinking there's got to be another meaning to this. So I looked up legend in the context of espionage and intelligence. And I came across this term that they actually use it. So in Russia, the term legend refers to, quote, an elaborate false identity or background story for operatives used in deep cover working in a foreign country. Fictional identities that allow the spy to operate for many years, blending into society with a
right.
credible personal history. So to craft a legend, so it goes on about how they craft these. So in other words, Charlie Kirk was a legend. And so now this is all about Charlie Kirk's legacy. So I think that's code as well. Legend, legacy. I think it's talking about this
Interesting,
construct.
Tim.
So
So,
Charlie Kirk is a construct.
I don't know if you watched The Prisoner from the 60s,
I have
the
not.
TV. Oh man, you would love it, and especially if you can get a hold of um, whatever the last redone version of it is. The colors alone are just beautiful, but it's an incredible script written by incredibly intelligent men, and just one series. Um, and oh God, the reason I was going to say that to you is it's built on upon a story of somewhere in the Highlands in Scotland, where they used to put ex spies, and they would put them up there, and that's where the name prisoner comes from, because like they would basically be stuck there till after the war, for however many years. They basically were going to be a kind of threat to government secrets. So they created a village, where these people could go in the very highlands of Scotland, and you'd have to spend your time there, basically an open prison, I guess, and then work your way back into real life. And that Patrick McGowan heard that story and adapted it to The Prisoner.
Yeah. Well, I think that's key because I noted this legend connotation that they've associated with all these different characters. And I thought legend is probably code for death faker. Then I found out legend is, in fact, code for constructs. These are constructs. They're real people, but they have a lot of fiction attached to them. Andrea points out John Lennon was called a legend, and his death had several 33s. Lemon Legend, third best record. Let's see what else we have here.
John
Last photo
Legend.
shoot on the cover of Rolling Stone at 3:30. Monday Night Football included 33. Yeah, so there's definitely that there. And Charlie Kirk was 31, but his killing was coded with 33. 33 hours later, the 3 hours, 30 minutes the guy drove. This is a consistent theme with all of these events. These numbers are they're to me, I think it could be internal communication or clues for the insiders, but
That
it's
doesn't make sense. So
predictable.
really, does it? I mean, like, what is it? What gets transferred? Yes or no, or that was me or that wasn't me. I mean, I've thought that through, and it doesn't make, unless these things are just sloshes of um brain that just take the
Well,
most basic.
here's the reasoning behind it. Okay, so there's a big conspiracy, and you have a two-tiered society. You have a secret society, or I call it security clearance society. So all the insiders are spread out. Now you can't just say, "Hey guys," in an email blast on Mailchimp, "Hey, on Thursday we're going to do this assassination. It's fake, so don't get all riled up about it, and just get ready to respond accordingly." No, instead of having to actually transmit that, They just publish it in the form of a clue or a hint, and any insider will know. And we can prove this because we are insiders. We've been studying this long enough that we see the hallmarks of a hoax, and from that you can deduce the whole thing is fake, and we're right 100% of the time. It's like, okay, there's a hoax indicator here. Let's see if there's a laughing crisis actor. Let's see if there's a second shooter. Let's see if there's a political agenda, and on and on.
Well, they're
And
all there all the time, every time. It's all, I mean, apart from the what do I keep forgetting? The agenda. What would you call it when he writes it down? What does a perpetrator write down?
the manifestos, the
Yes,
manifesto.
that's all that's missing from this one. You know.
Well, we have it manifesto. They actually made a.
Oh, is there?
Well, not a literal one, but they did is they kind of pieced together from Discord chat.
Right, but there's firecrackers and there's all the rest of it.
And then they put the manifesto on the bullets. So
yeah,
now,
which has been done 3 times, at least 3 times already. You know.
Now we did have a laughing crisis actor who came out who said that he was shot in the chest, and she was weirdly laughing. And I'm like, why would she be laughing at him unless they're trying to set us up the idea that the left is going to mock it or something? But they were laughing.
Yeah, but that's like a general thing that's been happening for years with these things. Like,
but real life though, real life isn't predictable.
Terror
like
comes up, there's
like,
a smile, and I don't know what that means. You know.
Well, whatever it is, I mean, I have a few ideas, but I think what's happening is when we see these things consistently, we're able to say as insiders, okay, we know this is a hoax indicator, and real life doesn't have that happen. When people die in real life, like there was killings here in town I can name, I don't see any news stories where people are, rushing to the scene to describe it. And one other thing that I also noticed is like these witnesses who are putting themselves on camera, they obviously seem rehearsed. And with the Annunciation school shooting, which does tie into this one, but in that one, they use child crisis actors where the children, like a little kid was saying, my friend was shot above me and I got some debris on me.
So it seems unbelievable. So isn't the obvious?
But here's the thing.
Go
the fact
on,
that you have, okay, so the parents would have had to have signed off on it. Let me let my children describe the massacre they witnessed. That's bad enough. But here's where it gets crazy. The movie Weapons, which mirrored Annunciation school shooting in many ways, is narrated by a child, start to finish. Mm-hmm. It's a child narrator. Child narrator, child actors.
Why wouldn't it be out of the realm of possibility that there's no such thing as a crisis actor? And if you looked back to anything that you've saved from 10 years ago to today, it all looks exactly the same. The footage all looks exactly the same. All the angles are exactly the same. All the responses
they're coached
exactly
the same way.
Same.
Yeah, they're always
the faces
the
are
way.
different. So what would that take you to? That would take me to it's all fake. That's why you get strange answers from supposed crisis actors. I mean, who has ever chased up one person from one event?
Well, one of the things I noticed, okay, the thing is, truthers get stuck and fixated on crisis actors, and they get sued for it. They get called terrible.
I've tried to never say that word because it sounds so ridiculous.
You sound like a terrible person because you're making fun of victims according to people who think it's real. But here's the thing that truthers don't do. They don't say, wait, if there's an actor, then there's a script writer, there's a director, there's craft services, somebody prepared their lunch, there's NDAs. So there's a whole infrastructure. And this is where people miss out on how big it is. For every single fake event, it implies the collusion between police, the hospitals,
in the military. And can you imagine how much money is involved? It's it's as big as any movie.
But can you have a psychological operation without full, not only complicity, but cooperation between government and media and the politicians and the police and the EMT hospitals? Like, no, these are all massive events that are top down. And then you see them connected to the top movies of the day.
And they've always been that way.
And it's always been that way. That's why I brought up Frankenheimer, who filmed Manchurian candidate hung out with JFK and drove RFK to his death by a mind-controlled assassin, just like the movies he had
And
made.
he didn't do that by secret. That's a matter of supposed history, just
Yeah,
for you to go and read and find out, and eventually go, what? You know?
so nobody would have seen the significance of it then, other than it's a weird coincidence that the director of these movies happens to be around these guys. Is he bad luck? No, he's directing them. Like Kubrick and the moon landing, like James Cameron and many other directors we could name who are specifically tied to many of these events, whether they be riots, mass shootings, buildings burning, or whatever. It's a consistent pattern. And so Frankenheimer, meta scripter. Who directed this shooting? I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if it wasn't somehow connected to Hulu and Disney because of that
I mean,
template.
I tweeted the other day this, like, just exactly the same thing. It's like you would hire the biggest and the best, I've like tweeted it before, but with names, and I went in a deep dive about all the good effects guys from the mid '60s to the mid '70s, and all the stop frame animation guys, and really there was like 6 names that came out of both of them without
Well,
me digging deeper and really knowing how to do that. But I would say it's got to be some of those people, because
I think we can name names oftentimes. I can point out, like, I think Spike Lee directed the George Floyd death. I think Jordan Neely's was directed by Jordan Peele. I think James Cameron had a lot to do with 9/11. Roland
yes,
Emmerich, 9/11.
well, there's no doubt in that, because there's a 3-year gap between right on his IMDb, like it should be. Like, if you figured it out, it's like he stopped here, he did that Avatar, and then he didn't do anything, and then he did something, and
Well, look,
like 2
Titanic
years later.
and Terminator 2 both had 9/11
Well,
references.
Titanic, it
And and
is
and
9/11.
and on 9/11, where was he?
It's
He was at
a
the
tragedy
Titanic that
story.
day. He was at the Titanic in his submersible
Yeah,
on
like it's
9/11.
like,
So,
how much further away could I be
or
from it?
so
Yeah.
Terminator 2 is being filmed, and George Holiday, this guy walks by and he's filming James Cameron filming Terminator 2, which is about an evil cop, right? Which, when now the cops are evil, is a new thing in movies. But that guy was then walking away from filming James Cameron at work, and he sees the cops beating Rodney King, and he records it. So the Rodney King video, the beating of Rodney King on video, where he was hit 33 times, that particular video incites the riots. But that tape starts out with Terminator 2 on it. So James Cameron talks about how basically somebody filming Terminator 2 about an evil
Well,
cop
I
records.
didn't know he talked about it. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
that's how I found out about it. He revealed this, and I looked into it, and he references it. So I'm like, wait, so James Cameron, Terminator 2 connection to Rodney King and LA riots. He directed the riots. So then I'm looking at Avatar 2, and it overlaps with the Atlanta riots with Cop City, where you have Avatar 2, Atlanteans, like the way of water. They're fighting the Marines. Then you have on the ground in Atlanta the environmentalists fighting the police, trying to protect their little forest. So you have these parallel stories. So I'm thinking James Cameron may have had a hand in the Cop City psyop that sparked the riots there. But we can name names. And this is a big leap forward because previously, the best truthers could come up with is the reason why these movies keep relating to the psyops is because of a simulation or synchronicity where they mystified it. And I'm like, no, we can actually point out the propagandists who are
Well, here's
employed.
what you're saying about propaganda. Isn't it interesting? So I'll give you a quick, like, 2-second thing. I think I told you before, I was into just mysteries as a child, as many people are, and I think that might be one of the, like, first triggering things. Bigfoot, UFOs, all those kind of things. And then I kind of got obsessed with space stuff because um, at the same time I was into um, just like film and stuff, you know, like resolution, and I was just like, I was blind to the fact that NASA footage looked like nothing else. You know what I mean? But I would try and record it all the time and just look at it. But it hadn't occurred to me that the reason it looks like nothing else is because it looks like the other stuff you love, which is stop frame animation, which is stuff on wires. I mean, I'm a sci-fi kid and horror kid from like way back, you know. Um, and it wasn't until two and two put together like that started like just freaking me out, going, of course. I mean, there's one simple key to this. It's a simple key, and it's like, my God, you've been cheated. You know, it really cheated is what it is like in a little way. You know, because you've got these thoughts in your head, and then all of a sudden it's like, it. Well, I think I've heard you say as well. You know, well, if what is there's the there's a
Well,
Latin
okay.
there's a
Science
Latin
fiction.
term, isn't there? Like
Oh yeah. Yeah.
one
Instrumentum regni.
one lie,
Yeah.
one is a lie, they're all a lie.
Instrumentum. Yeah. Instrumentum regni. It's the instrument of monarchy, and it basically says that superstition maintains the cohesion of the state, and that they use the fear of gods, the terror of gods, in order to keep the population subdued. And so, for example, I'd say Gaia is a god construct, the nuclear bomb, World War. These are like basically fictions or constructs that work like gods, like superstitions, where you can goad people into a state of total dependence and fear. So, like, look what the advent of the atom bomb did. It reframed geopolitics, where now everybody is equally in danger of dying if something happens. So we all got to live in the end times. It put us in the end times. And these events are meant to allow them to have total control over history itself, control over, like they talk about, in 100 years, what are they going to say about this? It was the turning point. And Mira AF, great blog, I've linked it, said that assassinations, real or faked, are well-known triggers for wide-scale political conflict. See World War I, but they can't just be random people. They have to have the desired effect. And this great article here explains why this event occurred according to this particular model, that this is something to predict, or to rather precede, some kind of political uprising on the right. And
I used
they,
to read Marie. I used to have a subscription, but I lost it at some point. Like, she just, I find it hard when someone talks absolute shit.
well, this person's
I
article
tend to
came
leave it
across my.
alone. You
This
know,
person
like it's
came
like when
across
people start
this
saying
person.
that, like there was three versions of fucking Kurt Cobain. It's like, I've worked with
Well,
his,
I don't know who this is. All I
you
know
know,
is their
music.
take on the Charlie Kirk thing has been spot on, because what they're pointing out here, this person pointed out, as others have, is that the state approved conspiracy theory they shove down your throat says everything is real. And so, for someone to come out and say we got to break free of this particular binary
Fair
and be
enough.
a little
Yeah.
more critical, that's what I'm looking for. But
Yeah.
I haven't looked too deep into them. Another one of their great articles here was essentially describing the significance of his rise to fame at 17 and how he got there. A little bit here, but my point is, this is a manufactured martyr, and this is a scene in our history books, like real or fake. This is going to be in our history books, and this is important. This is obviously an important event, arguably, I think, probably the most momentous,
Told you, Martyr
significant.
was in the name of the one of the guys, either the shooter or the last guy to ask the question. Martyr was in the name.
Yeah, the martyr is in the name, even
Martyred even
Trayvon
longer.
Martin. And so martyr, the martyrdom thing is intriguing here because, and we talked about JFK a little bit, and the JFK thing being a killing of the king ceremony, according to this one breakdown. But it's this idea of this martyr central to the Masonic myth, Hiram Abiff, who is killed defending the blueprints, keeping the secrets. But this idea of martyrs, a martyr cult, kind of implicit here. And I think a lot of the Masonic stuff we see here is all just kind of adding to it that he's a martyr. And they've used the word martyr, which is a religiously charged term.
Yep. Yep. I'm not sure if you saw my post before. Like, I think maybe I put it on Discord, but it was the same thing. Basically, it's following. It feels like it's following all the JFK hits. If you like, but in a short period of time. Rather
I
than
think,
like
yes,
10 years of
I think
books,
this is as
it's
big
like
as that
10
because
days of information, and
we're
then
critics.
it's like,
Look who's really being affected by it. His target demographic was youth, college, and even younger. So he reached out to the youth. He even went on a fourth graders podcast. So he reached this young group. They're not even close to approaching what we're talking about. And I've heard some older relatives talk about how the JFK assassination was a formative event in their lives. They're very idealistic. They
do you know
believe in
any
this.
of them that actually saw JFK?
I don't think that's the point.
Yeah,
No.
no, it's really not. The point of it is the significance, socially and politically, of this particular icon demographic and how it changes them for the rest of their lives. So these people running around chanting, "I am Charlie Kirk," yeah, they see themselves as saving Western civilization. They see themselves as taking part in God's special plan for America. So they've injected a great deal of religiosity into politics with this event as well. And that's going to affect them the rest of their lives. This is like their 9/11. This is a formative psyop.
The
British
turning
people
point.
don't see this at all.
Can I add something real fast? The ultimate goal, from what I can see, is shaping and forming history. This is the young people. Like, every generation has their own, like Charlie Kirk. We had, my generation was 9/11. The generation before that was JFK. Generation before that was World War II and Pearl Harbor. Eventually, you have your current psyops that they run. That's just to maintain the really the cohesion of what everybody runs around believing and telling everybody about and talking about. But eventually you got to go back and hit the youth with it, so they'll have a lifetime of, they were hitting their youth, and then every psyop they experience after that is just another, oh yeah, we're living in bad times. It's always bad times for these people because that's what they're targeted with. That if
Is
you
there
can't break
any
through that.
numbers between 9/11 and this? Like, has anyone looked into how many
Hey, let me
days?
answer Paul's question. Paul says, why not have him around for 40 more years? Seems like this event is less fake than others. If he was so useful, then why was he zeroed in on stage?
Yeah.
So my answer to this is, one, how does it seem less fake? Other than the visuals, because the surrounding circumstances, the concurrent predictive programming, it's this is stuff we predicted, and I'm not psychic.
Right.
So if I'm predicting how this thing plays out, then it's probably not real because I'm predicting it according to a template. But what's more, why did they take him out? Well, nobody cared about him in an emotional way. Nobody was crying about Charlie Kirk. He's just this nerdy guy going to college campuses. They transformed him into a pure martyr. They transformed him into St. Paul. They transformed him into something bigger than he was, because he died for a cause. So the psychology of uh, martyrdom, as far as how people interpret a martyr, is well understood, and that's what they're playing off of. Christianity is built around a martyr. It's a very powerful psychological operation, and it wouldn't be effective. Like, nobody would care about him. They blasted him, and they took him out, and then he was emotionally connecting. You know how many tours he went on over the last 10 years, how many personal appearances he made. He was just in South Korea meeting with their big Republican Party, the youth group, and they were praying over him. So he was propped up on the world stage to have an emotional connection with all these people. He's got this perfectly pure life. He's living this virgin Christian life. He's got his family, his new kids, married to Miss Arizona, and then he gets blasted in the throat for speaking the truth. Like, that's why they did it. It's drama. Psychological operations are inherently built drama. How would it have been useful to keep him around when he was only sent to an echo chamber? Now,
Well,
out of that.
I mean, don't misunderstand me. It's not like I'm trying to say like, it's not fake, because I've been following along since whenever, a couple weeks ago, and the IPS level of analysis is undeniable. Like, it's like we do pretty good stuff here. It's pretty interesting to like kind of tap into these conversations, even though I'm not really on it 100% of the time. Even if I catch 10% of it, it's like pretty good content. And I guess what I'm trying to say is there was one relationship. This is my follow-up to my question, is there's one relationship that still doesn't understand. It's the dichotomy between George Floyd and Charlie Kirk. And I'm late to this conversation, so you probably already talked about this, but I don't understand that either, because George Floyd, I mean, that, like, the perspective of him like doing drugs and everything, and like I mean, be that as it may, I don't know how anyone interprets this stuff, but like, I don't think George Floyd was necessarily a comparable character to Charlie Kirk, in a sense, as characters on the, like, I'm not going to play sides here. I'm just saying, like,
Yeah, let me explain that one, because that's a good.
Do you know what I mean?
Like,
Like,
okay, so in 2020, George Floyd was venerated, turned into a saint, mocked, because they try to emphasize him as something he wasn't, and so the right was always attacking his character. Just like Charlie Kirk is good and pure to the right, but the left think he's a racist and a sexist and a transphobe. So each side has an opposite of opinion of these two. But here's where they align. But first of all, before Kirk was killed the night before, he said that they're having their white George Floyd moment. So this was already being discussed. But George Floyd represents death at the hands of systemic racism. And so the woke left point of view is that the minorities are victim of class oppression. So George Floyd is actually a victim of society. That's why he's poor. That's why he's on drugs. That's why he made these life decisions, and that he was unfairly taken out by the cops biased against him because of his race and his social status. So they see him as a victim to rally around. They made him a martyr. They put him in a golden casket because they see him as essentially vindicating the perspective that they live in an oppressive society and he's oppressed. So that's why
He wasn't real.
But now then you go to the other side. Now Charlie Kirk is martyred by a left Antifa, who's basically on the BLM side, who's on the George Floyd side. And Kirk also is believed by the conspiracy theorists to have been killed by Israel. So the woke left thinks that the world is oppressed by what? Whiteness. But who does the woke right attribute the oppression to? Jews, Israel. So all the conspiracies that Israel killed Trump because he was going to turn on them reinforce the woke right point of view. So the woke right now has vindication that, hey, look, this is what Matt Hyde just said. He said, you go against the devil, or you make a deal with the devil, you go against them, this will happen. Jews killed JFK. Jews did 9/11. Jews killed Charlie Kirk. I already see those memes. So the reason why they're not the same, they're mirrors though. So the right sees Daniel Penny as a vigilante and Jordan Neely as a menace to society. The left, they see Daniel Penny as a racist and a murderer, and they see Jordan Neely as a victim of society. They see Luigi Mangione as a vigilante who killed the CEO. The CEO is a villain. So you have to look at this through the lens of this is a bifurcated Psywar, and these are martyrs on opposite sides of the political horseshoe. And I pointed this out when I saw their birthdays, but since then, this has been building up. And now the leader of Antifa's PR team said that they're organizing for Charlie Kirk's birthday a George Floyd birthday event. So this is part of the Hegelian dialectic. It's not a coincidence that it's black and white. It's black nationalism, or BLM, and it's white nationalism. It's not a coincidence.
Have you seen the similarities between some of the names and Freeman?
Yeah, I have looked at some of the esoteric of the names. I think Kirk's name is significant, Kirk and church and all this. But as far as as this story goes, yeah, these
Well,
do,
Charles seems to mean free man or full-grown man.
but like
And,
when you
and
look at
then
it from this
France,
perspective,
which is her maiden name.
okay, after George Floyd died, right wingers did the George Floyd, I guess they call it a sort of a TikTok thing where they kneel on each other's necks. They mock George Floyd's death. They mock his death. They say he died of an overdose, that Chauvin didn't do it. So then what happened after Charlie Kirk died? What
I
did the
thought he
left,
was calling
and
his
not
mother.
only did the left unanimously go after Charlie Kirk and say he deserved to die, but like I know somebody who works in the airline industry who knows some pilots who lost their jobs over comments about, so these are predictable. So you can see though, if you look at it objectively, there's a perfect mirror, left and right. They're actually completely opposite, just like with everything else on this stage. Left believes in climate change, right believes in weaponized geoengineering. Well, they have an opposite perspective. So look at Daniel Penny and Luigi Mangione. This is a mirror, just like Floyd and Kirk.
To
So
me,
you may not.
it reminds me of a mirror of 2017, which was Parkland, and that's when most of the YouTube, interest in YouTube people got binned in one day, because they were saying that's not a real person. That just looks like it looks like Pinocchio, and I think honestly, it's just my opinion. I know, but I've been looking at a bunch of evidence, and I'll probably look at a whole bunch more. But
Let me add this: if it's real, let's just play media advocate, because we're the devil's advocates. So let's play media advocate. Let's say it's real. If it's real, it happens
it
to
can
fit.
be between though. That's the thing
It
that I'm
can't be.
saying.
It cannot be.
It doesn't
No,
have to
no,
be just
no,
real.
it actually does. It actually does, because we're talking about a closed informational system. So it's either real or fake. It's not real plus second shooter. I mean, second
Well,
shooters.
you're saying it's real plus
Well, look, let me emphasize what I'm trying to say
augmented
here.
reality. So
Okay,
that's
let's
real
just
plus.
let's pretend it's real for a minute. Is what I'm saying. Let's just go with it's real. If it's real, let's
I'm not
mark all.
arguing, man. I'm
No,
just
no,
asking.
I'm positing here though. Like hypothetically, if it's real, what would we have to confront as a burden of proof? So if it's real, you need to explain away the 33 hours, which you may not think that's a big deal. You have to explain away the multiple real-time alignments with the Tempest, including Kirk going over there in that very character's role on Hulu 6 days before.
I'll agree with
No,
all
no,
your if it's reals.
and yeah, and but going on, there's, I mean, there's so I'm trying to list all the different things that you would have to confront to say that it's real,
I've
and then
tweeted them. I've tweeted
including,
them all. Like this
yeah,
just doesn't make
but what I'm
sense.
saying, but that's your order. It's like if you're going to say it's real, how do you explain those things away? How do you explain the lack of a lockdown, the lack of police reaction, the takedown of the crime scene, the weird behavior of the guy at the crime scene? How do you deal with that? Because the burden of proof is now on the media. That's what I'm saying. So the burden of proof was on us. Maybe not. I mean, it's arguable. If you don't trust the news, maybe you want more. You want to
That's it.
have a.
I could say, I could just say the simple sentence: if you believe Judy Wood's information on 9/11, then you're doing the same thing, looking at the videos of the recent thing, and we're basing a whole bunch of facts on unfactual evidence.
It's the starting premise. Like, if this is real, then you should be, I think, rather amazed.
Seems to me it'd
No,
be
you should
much
be like,
easier to do it the other way around. That's all.
if this is real, then I would be interested. Like, if someone says, I think this is real, then what is your reaction to the Tempest? How do you explain that away? How does that make sense? And then if we look at previous events, every other previous event we've analyzed has concurrent programming. Why would you expect this to be different? Or if this one was different, how did a real event happen to match the template of every previous event? So I'm just saying,
If the
I don't know
Tempest
how.
is a drama, why wouldn't this be a drama?
One other point too, if it was real, Why would we have multiple planted false narratives? Why would we have truther bait
No,
promoted by
those
all?
are obvious. That there's no debate about that. It's ridiculously
Yeah, I'm just saying, for the sake
JFK.
of argument, though, for the sake of argument, if this was real, then you'd have to explain away the planted false leads that are meant for conspiracy theorists. You'd have to explain a lot. There's a lot that
But
goes
those are done in every single psyop. I
every
mean,
single. So if it was real, why would a real event match the template of previously diagnosed fake events? It's not logically consistent. So you have to look at this as a continuum, as a contiguous set of psyops that are on the
I
same
don't know what you're
script.
missing, because that all followed through to me and all made sense. I don't know what doesn't make sense. Is it the fact that Charlie Kirk seems to be an ongoing character from like 2018 or something?
Well, it's an interesting question. I think it's important, though, to always adopt the steel man argument. So when somebody thinks it's or suggests it might be real, you can't straw man it. You have to really say, okay, well, what is the best way of? And so the best argument you can have for it being real is it looks real on TV,
It doesn't
but
look, but it
but
doesn't
but
look
then
real.
it that's questionable. And then you have people like, and this is also interesting. I saw Steven Crowder. He's like mad that Candace Owens is looking at alternate footage, and he says, I could only see it once. It's like, okay, that's your problem there. They make it
And
so
that's a lie,
gory. They make it
because
gory.
we
They
all
make it
saw it for 24
they make
hours.
it gory on purpose so people don't want to, so they're not inclined to see it. And if you don't look,
Yeah,
how are you able to
that's
analyze it? You got
bullshit.
to do a frame by frame on this to have.
Yeah, everybody saw everything, and what it, I mean, what it seemed to me, it right at first was, a kind of conglomerate of whatever, you know, way you want to put CGI together, and there seemed to be I meant to say this at the time, a higher frame rate for the gushing, to
Well,
make it
have
more
you heard
real.
my?
And
Have you?
then when we zoomed up on it, I remember some guy saying that it didn't make sense, and this kind of made sense to me, that it came out in gloops. It
Well, I've been
didn't
describing
spray
this
out.
concept of the blindfolded skeptic because let's say space, for example, all the space stuff, you can look at it and you can say it looks fake, but the people who believe it are going to say no, it looks real to me. So you can't really argue based on it comes the strength of your opinions. And so the argument about space being real or fake is largely opinion if you only limit your analysis to what you see on the screen. So in this case, it looks real. I saw it on TV. But my blindfolded skeptic premise is that you shouldn't need the visuals to decipher or discern a hoax because the
So
hoax
if
is
you
going to
got
have.
someone shooting um, like doing a shooting thing, which we've seen many of, and they shoot something from however many yards, and it's like gelatin, or an animal, or a melon or something, and the whole thing just explodes, completely explodes, the way it would when a bullet hits flesh. Never
But
mind a head. I mean, the
But see,
entire
that gets
neck.
into the realm of armchair autopsies where it gets
Right.
into opinion. Looks fake to me, apples and oranges. And the point is, they may be valid, but normies are going to reject it. And it doesn't
Yeah,
hold.
but it may be valid. That's the thing.
It may be, but no one's going to look. The space stuff looks fake as hell to me, but everybody believes it. Normies believe it. You can't push back on it. But what you can do is you can put on your blindfold and ignore the visual deconstruction, which is just way too simple. It's too simplistic to think that we're going to expose the big things by what they show us, as they're at some point not going to be too good for us to see through it. So we're relying on them screwing up, not good enough, not anymore. I think what's more important here is to put on the blindfold and say, what can I discern out of this based on all the surrounding peripheral information, based on witness accounts, based on how this fits previous patterns. So I don't think you need video to deconstruct this as a hoax
That's what I
whatsoever.
did. I mean, I didn't post anything for like 2 weeks or something, and I posted some stuff on your Discord.
I
was gonna
remember,
do
but
Twitter, and then
what was
I was
your
just like,
what was your
oh,
starting
what if
point?
I do this? You know, it's like,
What was the thing that had you convinced that this was likely staged? Because for me, it was The Tempest. When I saw The Tempest and the timing, I was like, okay, anybody who says this is real needs to explain this. And then they have
I
to
will be
explain
honest.
1,000 other.
When I saw her photo for Miss Arizona, I was like, there's no way that's the biggest and the best that Arizona's got to offer for Miss USA. There's no way. It's like, I'm sorry, and that's not that's just a general. That
No,
wouldn't
yeah, I'm
happen.
curious. Anybody else? I'm curious to know what caused people to question whether Charlie Kirk is alive or not. Because I'm saying Charlie Kirk's alive. I have no reason to think he's dead. But what was the tipping point? What was the turning point for you?
Would you accept that perhaps Charlie Kirk was someone else?
No, because I listened to his podcast for several years. So no, I mean, I'm very familiar with him because I've immersed myself in politics left and right. I listen to all the podcasts, I read their op-eds, I watch their YouTube appearances. So I have enough information to not question whether it even existed, as some people have suggested. And so a lot of the people who are going down the route of he's a hologram or something maybe may not be aware of how active he was, but it was also
No, but
probably
it'd
not
be
their demo.
both, man. It'd be both. Like you would have somebody who would do that.
No, if you listen to his arguments or his podcasts, there's an intellectual rigor there that isn't just replaceable. So that's I think it's too idiosyncratic,
For a few
irreplaceable.
lines.
No, not a few lines. This guy does 3-hour sit-down debates with a bunch of strangers.
No. I mean, like in the proper like footage that we see. It
No, I don't think that's a fruitful area of inquiry. I mean, we have a long history with this person. This person's a legend.
There's no long shot into that clip, is there?
So okay, I'm going through what some of your turning points were. What caused you to think this thing was likely faked? Venus Davlin says, for me, it was a lack of crime scene active investigation. It was a Scooby-Doo episode. Lean Dion says, Erica Kirk's cold theatric WWE reaction sealed this for me as fake. Andrea says, the fact it went unknown to the topic of most conversations and posts overnight. Crime scene was a huge tell. 33 hours is busy, 56. Yeah, that was one for me because I knew who he was because this is niche to me, but it's not, I mean, it's big in politics, but people weren't aware of it. Then he's on South Park, and now everybody knows who he is enough to upload videos telling, how much they're happy he's dead. The crime scene, Lean Dion, that one's big for me. No one has yet explained to me adequately why it's okay to take down a crime scene on a highly charged political assassination in front of 3,000 people. Like, you wouldn't want to tamper with it because you might, I don't know, screw up your chances of prosecuting the guy. You don't want to leave any doubt. That's a crime
also
anyway.
Weird that people's views on Twitter would get the attention of the president of the United States. It's
And
like,
and what's interesting too. Okay,
like
so
movie.
in the broader context of script and how the movies track with these things, last year The Madness came out, and it was about Musk. It was about the leader of a group called the Forge, which is like a white nationalist group who gets killed, and that character is based on Nick Fuentes largely, I believe. But anyway, there's a Laura Loomer character in it. So a lot of these very popular propped up characters have counterparts in the Netflix concurrent releases. This has been a current. So the fact that he is hanging out with those people every day, he's in the same circle as some of the ringleaders of January 6th. So you can't take any of these characters out of their context. And if they're surrounded by crisis actors, if they're in Trump's circle, come on, Trump's the most famous crisis actor in the world. Butler, Pennsylvania was fake. They're in that circle. Those people aren't just going to get shot by some rando while they're on their job.
And there's a script. as well, you need to remember, it's like, it's not just today, not just yesterday, it's what's coming too.
VD says lack of campus lockdown. Yeah, I thought the lack of ambulances as well. I was like, where's the EMTs? I'm not an EMT, but I did take EMT basic, and I do remember this discussion about how if somebody has a neck or a spinal injury, you got to be very careful about moving them. You got to immobilize it. Maybe it's not a priority if they're bleeding. So I don't know the exact protocol, but I was a little struck by the fact that there was no EMT response. You don't hear any sirens. No, his friends throw him in the back of the car. Like, I thought that was a little psyop, because we have seen this before in many psyops where they don't bring out ambulances. How many times have we seen this? Like, even in Vegas, where they transported people to the hospital supposedly in Uber cars. They have people Ubering to the hospital supposedly. It's like, wait a minute here. Or police putting people in the cars to drive them instead of ambulances. That's a very drilly psyopy thing. It's actually not uncommon.
Here's the thing. I tried on your Discord to get this through. It didn't happen. Surely there should be many, many videos, and regardless of how they turned out, they could be blurry, or they could be running, or they could be glitchy, or they could perhaps be a little bit different from the 3 or 4 that you've been given. But I was getting everyone on the thing saying and trying to put me down, and I was just saying, if your friend had even a chance of asking this guy a question, and you thought that your friend was going to be the guy to put him down and get one over on him, you'd be filming the whole thing, and thus everybody would be filming the whole thing.
Well, I don't know about necessarily, like, I was looking at some of the positions that they're in, and I don't know if people would be recording it because it's being professionally recorded. It's not like it's a concert where everybody's recording every move of the person, but there is more footage. Because when it first came out, I saw the dot on his shirt, and I thought that could be indication of a CGI wound that hasn't been put in the right place. We were trying to figure it out. Well, then we waited a few days, a few hours, more footage comes out. Oh, that's a mic. So no, we did get more and more footage, more angles as time goes on. So we
Not
have
now,
to
though. Only in the few days. It was just like it was
we
a couple
can't
of
have to
days.
recognize that there's more video out there you've seen, I'm sure.
We'll
But
never
before
see
we
it. We'll never see it.
before you can assert that there is a shortage of video, you have to actually go out and gather what's there and do a count. And so I can't say I've seen it all, but I don't think that there's a conspicuous lack of coverage. I think it's actually probably
It's like you
on par with what
guarantee
you
you'll never see like a full head spray shot of his head disappearing, and that to me just reeks of Bigfoot and UFOs.
Listen, hey, CGI.
It's nearly there. It's almost, the footage is almost there, but it's just never quite there.
Well, listen, I was one of the main ones that disagreed with you about that because this guy goes out and talks to young people at college campuses. Young people ain't messing around with videotaping things going on in front of them. They're using the camera on the screen side of their phone to look at themselves and their buddies that they're sitting with. That's old head thinking that someone's just going to be filming an event for no reason. Like Tim just said, that he's filming his own thing and they put the content out regularly. Why would you feel the need to film something so just a speech or some questions and stuff? And don't act like this guy has so many friends that he's the popular one that's asking this question,
It
and
would be a
all
huge
500
event.
of his
By the
friends
way,
are going
I've
to
had
be filming this one guy.
I've had 2 people say that they know somebody who was there, but those people who were there have no corresponding video. So that's something we offer with psyops is people will say they were there, but like one person said they were really close to him. It's like, well, where's the video then? So even the
That's what
people
I
who
said
claim
to
they're
you, to Tim.
I don't
What
think
you
it's
say to me
video.
if I was there, you'd like immediately kind of like think twice,
Dude, but why would you need video? Why would you want to record something so, to me,
that's
just kind of lame? I don't think anybody would
You
really
wouldn't
just
know
want
it
to
was
record that.
coming. You would
yeah.
just be
Who wants
filming
to
it.
see a 3-hour Q&A of a conservative politician talking about ideology from up in the bleachers. Like,
Yeah,
no,
like,
that's
I'm
not.
gonna
You
I'm
would
gonna
if you
eat up
thought your
all the
friend was
whole-
going to get to ask a question and would like destroy
Well, the
him.
person who was asking a question was filmed up close, and he was asking specifically about trans shooter violence, which made an ironic statement when he got shot right after that. That was pointed out because that ended up being the case as far as the shooter and where his sympathies were. So that bit of irony there is another hoax indicator to me, because real life isn't perfectly scripted and ironic like these psyop attacks are. So that there is another, and that's also another connection to the Annunciation shooting, which is directly connected to the issue of gun control because it was a school shooting allegory. So even the shooting timing itself, the question that was being asked, and the guy who was asking a question when he was shot looks very fishy. If you've seen the interview with him, the guy who
Why
asked,
is this? Why is the I'm you know I'm dude, I love doing this stuff, but like I still don't understand why the even the thought that everything you've been given visually is not real.
it's about scale, okay? Because and I know where you're getting at, because we do have to maintain strict objectivity, and when something's fake or fakeable, you have to ask, is it fakeable at scale? Like, there are some people who believe that gorillas don't exist or panda bears don't exist. And yeah, you can find pictures of people in panda costumes, you can find animatronics. Yes, those are fakeable. But could you fake
Why can't
gorillas
you
and
have
pandas?
both?
No, you can't. Well, no, you can fake them, but can you fake it on a global scale? No. So you can fake anything, truly, on TV. But when you have 3,000 witnesses and you're killing a well-known character, that's like a tall burden of proof if you're going to suggest that nobody.
What witnesses have we encountered?
No, I mean, I think we have to assume reality exists before we start subtracting things. So, like, what are you asserting is fake, and then address that. But no, I have to really be strict on being objective about this. Like, I'm not going to claim to disbelieve something unless I have reason to disbelieve. We got to separate low info disbelief from informed disbelief. So the people who
But
don't
what
believe in
if the
panda
people
bears,
that you've
the
seen?
people have the people who don't believe in pandas or gorillas are arguing.
I've got nothing to
It's
do
called
with pandas.
it's called an appeal to ignorance, though, and so it's like
I've got
you're
nothing
saying
to
since
do with
I
that.
can't verify it,
I'm just
it's
saying the
not.
people that we have seen interviewed seem like every other psyop. So that's that bit taken care of. Like it's all the same thing. It's the smiling and it's the unusual behavior and no tears and just an unhumanly reaction to what's just happened.
Look at this
So I
comment
haven't
here.
seen
This is
anything
a common
but
one.
that. I haven't seen anything.
Matthew says, "Bro, the
Where
got shot. I hunt and I seen what it looks like when a bullet hits a body. He got shot. That wasn't a blood
people
pack."
crying or actually being upset or you know
Well, okay, evidence of absence isn't absence of evidence. And if you go with that, it becomes an appeal to ignorance. So we need to go look and find, because I have seen videos of people who were there who I think were genuinely psyoped and who cried on camera. All the people crying, it's real. The emotions are real. People are involved in this, but it's kayfabe. It's like wrestling. There's an audience, and then there's the stage. So it is real, but it's what you would call actually hyper real. To use a term from Baudrillard, which is the idea of they've blended reality and fiction so seamlessly that it's hard to distinguish between the two at some points.
it's hard to believe they would do that at such close range. I'm only being honest, and like that's what triggers me to say. But then you could get into other things where you could say, "Oh, well, the first 10 rows were taken care of," and
Yeah, that's a good one too. Okay,
really,
if this
really, when it comes to
this psyop,
magicians,
this was planned how many years in advance? So
this is
first
the
of all,
thing.
if
If you
if we're
ask a magician, there's a classic clip on YouTube about Penn and Teller, And basically, their bottom line is when it comes to an illusion, the two things you have to outweigh are the amount of time that an illusionist might put into an illusion, and the amount of time that you think is possible to do that. And you must always outweigh the first by miles. And then they did this trick with like 1 million cockroaches, and they just came out of nowhere. And fuck knows how they did it. But the things on YouTube, and they'll show you later, but they were basically, we had to do, it took us this long to do a 3-minute sketch, basically, you know.
Okay. See, that's a good point. And now we're talking about, this thing was planned years ago. I think it's safe to say they didn't come up with it yesterday.
It had to be.
So no, building on that though, that there's plenty of room for plants in the audience to overreact, to scream. And there was this thing called the immersive illusion. It was talked about after this show came out called The Space Cadets, where for 10 episodes, they had these people convinced that they were in
have
low Earth
actors
orbit.
around you,
They
then
had,
you're going to act a
that's what
certain
did it.
way.
Because there were 10 people on the ship that thought they were in orbit. Well, it turns out 5 of them were actors. And the actors knew they were actors because they were part of their little club. So they made sure the non-actors never got to interact and put 2 and 2 together. So if you have 3,000 people there and 100 of them are actors who are going to scream and overreact and maybe even block the view of people who might be recording,
people, yeah.
they could have it locked down and have it essentially a closed movie set in full view of the public. Easy.
Hey, that's a good point. Check this out. There used to be a T-shirt when I was growing up that said "Bomb Squad," and then on the back it said, "If you see me running, try to keep up." All you would have to have is maybe 5 or 10 people max to start yelling and running away from the scene and saying, "Oh, there's a shooter," and everybody's immediately gonna freak out. It's like the fire extinguisher deal, or I mean the fire alarm deal. That's why you can't pull a fire alarm. So even if there are real people in the crowd, you can still generate plenty of reaction just by having 1 or 2 people start
Oh
running
yeah,
away
there's
and saying,
there's a
"There's
classic one on 153 News where they compare like whatever flavor of the month it was, and then there's some guy who comes into an Apple store with a gun, and I mean, it's like night and day. Everybody just like hits the fucking floor or runs to the corner, you know, immediately, you know. Like no one just waits around when a murder happens, you know.
Yeah, so I think it's safe to say, given the amount of time and energy and money put into this, and this is done, look at the money that went into that event. I mean, this is the best special effects. You know, they've got to have a lot of people to control the scene. It's locked down. There were drones floating over the thing. It's a closed movie set with people there, just like wrestling, like a magic show. It's an illusion. It's a magic show. So I think if you look at this more as an illusion, as a magic show than anything else, I think that answers a lot of the questions in terms of how you should frame your understanding of it and the crowd response.
Whomever the crowd might be.
I happen to think, like, because I'm trying to think oftentimes like I'm working in the Psyop entertainment department myself. And if I was running the show, I would say get 10 people out there for every section and have them holding their phones up, but they don't really have to record anything. But make sure that anybody who's organically trying to record, who's not one of us, get in front of them, block them, make sure that you have all the best seats. In some way, you want to control all of the media output that goes out. You don't want any unvetted content that to go out there that might contradict it. So, for example, you wouldn't want somebody who's not part of your team to accidentally have the wrong angle leak. And so I think this was very tightly controlled, and they had plenty of time to organize it and to control it. And every other indicator here suggests that there's no real, I think, weaknesses in this psyop. It was, even though you had thousands of people, I think it was pretty much a closed set. And look at up front, how many people are surrounding the guy? Like, I thought that was weird. I see him on stage on a chair, but here he looks like he's got Secret Service protection. the way that they're all surrounding him, like standing at the ready, it looked to me like a team, like like a NASCAR team. They're ready to change the tires in a second. They're just poised to move. So the whole thing just to me looked tremendously rigged.
And that's exactly what they did. The second it happened, they all sprung into action and the body was taken away in a flash, just like a tire being put on.
Yeah, did you get the sense that it
How
looked
many
rehearsed?
seconds did you see him on the floor? None.
Yeah, this thing was so it looked rehearsed. It looked
He
rehearsed,
fell, and then it cut. So there was nothing to suggest a pouring out of blood apart from what you saw when he was sitting up. As soon as that was over, as soon as he leant over, all that detail was lost. And there's no other detail until he supposedly, from 2 or 3 angles, getting taken into a people carrier or something.
yeah, and when he's going to the SUV, and Russian vids pointed this out. If you look, it's really strange, but you do seem to have people who are poised to capture the action, like they knew it was going to happen. And there's a couple,
Yeah.
and there's 2 points where it looks like there's one where he's on the ground, and another going into the SUV where it looks like Charlie Kirk's head is moving, like he's lifting his own head. There's 2 instances that I noticed that were pointed out today.
There's no
So,
way that could happen.
well, he was a man of steel, right? Maybe it's a
No, I
miracle.
suppose. And then I mean, even before all this, the Man of Steel stuff, but didn't we have like Adam West and with all these other names like West and I think
That's good.
some
Dookie
stuff up
says
there. But Batman, it was only like a month before, you know.
bullets don't melt steel spines. That's pretty good, Dookie Foot. That's what they said. And the timing of it's funny because Candace Owens comes out. She says, "I saw the footage from the guy standing on the chair, and there's no blood, no gore." So they left that hanging, and the next day, then they come out with it's because there was no exit wound because he has a steel spine. So
That's unbelievable. I mean, it's like JFK. You know?
but the fact is, the shooters then now. It was Candace Owen who brought that up, and she shared the photo of the guy. She found the photo of him at the Dairy Queen next to the Superman poster. And so I'm thinking this too is in your narrative. Even Candace Owens dropping the bit about the bloodless video, I think that's part of the rollout of a script. Like they're not investigating with us; they're spoon feeding us
Oh,
propaganda
she's
lines.
absolutely ridiculous. You know, it's just like
But like my point is,
I don't
she
even know
poses
if
as
she's
she's
real. You know,
investigating
it's
with us.
like
Like
she
we're
seems
looking for
like
the
a
truth.
character.
She's looking for the truth. We're all looking for the truth. No, she's not. She's there to carefully guardrail your opinions. So
She's
she's like,
Alex
hey,
Jones.
so guys, look at me, guys. I got this footage. Come to me for info. Then you do, and then you're led into another. Now you guys look crazy because actually what happened is the neck stopped the bullet. But if you don't believe that because it's absurd, then you default to because Benjamin Netanyahu shot him from beneath the stage. So everything they release is a propaganda narrative and a line. They're not investigating along with us. So people are following a lot of Pied Pipers.
What do you think about I put a tweet up about because I asked you, like I said, do these hands look credibly embalmed? And you said, yeah.
They do to me. Honestly, they do to me. The sometimes people look a little orange, and it's because of the embalming fluid and the hands. I mean, it looked like an embalmed body to me, although
Right.
usually hands are resting on top of one another, not down at the sides. That's kind of not standard. But I didn't detect anything about the coloration or anything that seemed off. but they didn't show you his face. The only thing I found off was that how the hell did you manage to get this guy's body declared dead, autopsied, and then sewn back together and embalmed and dressed in time for 9/11? So that whole part of it just reeks of PR stunt.
At some point during that day, I thought, I didn't put up a tweet, but it did occur to me that perhaps the script would say Elon Musk would put him on a fucking rocket and throw him into space, you know. But I still think that Elon might resurrect him as a AI, and
That already
and
happened.
some,
There were some evangelical churches where they had AI Charlie Kirk. They're like, hey,
right.
Charlie,
But
how is
can
it
you
in heaven?
imagine him being like in the cabinet, like the US, you know, fucking
Oh, I see. Let's take all of Charlie
giving
Kirk's content as a
give an
knowledge base
AI a position.
and have AI Charlie. Yeah, they could probably they're probably going to do that, because when the church did it, he's like, Don's actually cool. It's like being
Yeah,
promoted
I
to
bet they
heaven.
loved it.
I thought that was necromancy. I thought that was dark. I'm
Oh,
like, oh,
disgusting, man.
but all around this whole thing, I'm going with this blindfolded approach. The surrounding stuff, even the Charlie Sheen stuff, the JFK stuff, and we've just scratched the surface. This raises enough doubt for me to push the burden of proof back. So for me to believe it, because in order to have a falsifiable theory to be considered rigorous and serious, it has to have this caveat where there has to be some evidence that, if provided, would convince you that you're wrong. And so I am convincible. But for me to be convinced that he's really dead, I need someone to explain away the Charlie Sheen stuff, the Tempest stuff, and all the weird JFK stuff. So those things would need to be explained away to me first, before I can start looking at this as possibly real, without then going to the video. But those are the biggest questions for me, as well as the weird violations of protocol in terms of no EMTs, no ambulances, no police, and then the funeral home thing being rushed. All that stuff to
Isn't
me.
that some sort of that doesn't that guarantee some sort of forward thinking? Um, um, I don't mean. I just mean basically thinking about something that's missing. You know, if you've got A and you've got C and you don't have B, it's trying to figure out what B is to get to C. Do you understand what I'm saying? Um, and I guess you hate that because it's unknown. Um,
I call those known unknowns. So you may not
right.
have the, like, with the magic trick you haven't figured out yet. Like, you know enough to know there's a
You know
trick.
that it works, and you know that it keeps happening. But it's difficult to put into words how that happens, and I will say myself, it happens in my own world, you know, too. So
Well, okay, with this Irina Zaruski subway killing, on that one, I wasn't thinking it was fake, because it didn't really hit the bar for unbelievable, because sadly these things happen. And there weren't any crisis actors running around like that. But the reason why I questioned it was, suddenly, no less than Charlie Kirk said, "Hey, this is our George Floyd moment." And then after Kirk goes, you got two neck wounds back to back, and they're juxtaposed, talked about in the same context. And so on that one, it didn't fit the usual pattern or template, except for the fact that it was immediately applied to the broader political utility. And then I'm like, wait a minute, Austin Metcalf, another martyr, stabbed, put into a racialized context. So the racialization of it is what got me. Same thing with the Raja Jackson beating Psycho Stu. That one looked real, even though it was a wrestling thing. But I started to really question it when suddenly all the big influencers on the far right were using this to frame it for a race war. Same thing with the Austin Metcalf, Shiloh Hendricks. So they all fit a pattern, and the template was actually established in Sinners. And so if you haven't seen Sinners, it's a movie where the vampires are the white people, and it has predictive stuff for a twin getting killed and all that. But the end point of it is there's this secret power structure. It's the Ku Klux Klan, and they're vampires. And the hero of the story, played by Michael B. Jordan, gets a machine gun and he mows down the Klan at the end. So you have this black versus white narrative where the blacks get revenge at the end, and the leader of the whites are killed, the leader of the white clan. So then you have Charlie Kirk, who isn't Klan, who isn't a white nationalist, who doesn't fit that. But if you look at the bigger picture from the left, how he's viewed, they see this as justifiable because of his rhetoric. So I do see that this does place in the context of the race-based psyops that we have seen endlessly since Sinners came out.
Yeah, I mean, you tagged me on this guy who was found hanging, and I've never found another name the same way, like the Deprogram.
Oh, the Trey Reed, his real name is like Trayvon Martin, just Trayvon Martin. Like, what the
No,
hell?
but then I did I'll put it in the thing. That's actually in his name with the Trey in the middle. The words are Trayvon Martin martyred overtired media narrative that I found in there. You know, it's like
We found a whole lot of the black martyrs have Trey associated with them, like from Trayvon, Tyreek, or Trye, or Terry, Tyree Nichols, and it goes back. And by the way, Paul Trippa, thank you for joining, by the way, and thanks everyone for your comments and questions. It's very helpful because we're still looking at this as everything else. There's still more to come, but this is on Zoom because I wanted to have it recorded. So this is recorded, the audio and video, but I'm going to premiere it on YouTube. I wasn't sure if I was going to, because I didn't know if we were going to go over the blood and stuff, because fake blood will get you banned. But no, we've kept it clean enough that I can just go ahead and premiere this. And also, I feel like we should do a Zoom conference once a week, because there's too many big psyops that I think deserve a deep dive, and we could just put the best stuff on the table. And I know we didn't get to everything, but certainly people listening to this are going to be posting comments, which then I will go over after. So, and a lot of stuff I didn't even know. Like, I didn't know that Charlie Sheen thing came out on September the 10th. And I didn't know until yesterday that Kirk was actually the group getting prayed over in South Korea that corresponds to the Tempest character and his group. I mean, it is just, this is this, as far as concurrent predictive programming, this is next level with Kirk's character.
it's ridiculous.
It's merged. So this is hyper real, Baudrillard. So yeah, I think we're going to probably this now. We've been on for 3 hours. Thank you, CGI Folk, Dookie Foot,
Then you saw the Kraken stuff as well. Like the wife and the guy that asked the last question both have Kraken in their name.
Yeah, the Kraken references are huge, hugely significant, because again,
and there's been at least 4 like separate people saying about, you know, something awakening or similar, you know.
Awakening, igniting the Kraken, this turning point. And again, turning point in the book specifically refers to an airborne attack that kicks off a revolution against everybody else. But the turning point has a reference to this airborne attack, and it was like, okay, this is getting to the point where the Kraken thing seems to be poised to come up next. And the Kraken theme has been consistently attached to a nuke from the sea, whether it's Poseidon or otherwise. And again, interestingly enough, this TV show, The Tempest, ends the episode 3 after the widow gives her speech, makes everybody cry, and then it cuts to the submarine and you see the missile launch. So I'm saying if the Tempest, and again, Tempest means storm. She was called the Storm yesterday by Stephen Miller. If the Tempest continues to track with reality, then the next thing on the world stage could be the nuke from a submarine, some kind of like like what is it, Hunt for Red October? There could be something along those lines on the agenda next.
Did you see? I don't know if I can like type it in here, but when I was checking out Jurassic, there's a headline on Fox News that says FBI probing Kirk ass.
Oh, I did see that. I did see that. You know, oh, by the way, I got invited to a concert next week, and I expressed interest in it because last year we were looking at the usual stuff and the Trump thing, and Marilyn Manson releases an album called One Assassination Under God. So I'm like, okay, and then he has a song called King Kill 33, so he's aware of this stuff. And so I'm looking at his album for predictive programming. I watched the video. I'm trying to see, is this foreshadowing? And then he puts out a song called In the Air Tonight, which I thought might be a Fallout reference. But I thought this album came out a few months after the Trump shooting. But I was like, okay, is this some kind of foreshadowing for what's going to happen with Trump or something? And I'm wondering now, and I have to watch the video again, could that album or could any of it have any indications about this one, Charlie Kirk? Because he had a song called, I don't know if you've been familiar with the meta scripting in Manson's music, but his song Coma White has a video where JFK has his photo on a cross, and it's about JFK as the second coming, dying, and everybody's mourning. So this kind of interesting now that he has an album called One Assassination Under God. And I was listening to it, and I don't know, it seems like he's dropping cryptic hints as to this incoming event being about an entertainment and sacrifice being conflated. But anyway, he's in town this week, and I got invited to go. So I'm like, well, I should go just to do my research, because he's out there pushing this meme, One Assassination Under God, and you can't separate the music from the movies, from the books, from the video games, and the meta scripters
especially from what's just happened. So it'd be interesting.
Exactly. That's exactly why I'm going, because weirdly enough, his whole storyline in his music video about JFK as a second coming, and about these people waiting for the third Jesus being his son, obviously. So the idea is funny because that's what Q believes, that JFK Jr. is the savior. But here's the thing: the video release was delayed because when the video was released, JFK Jr. dies in real life. And he's also someone whose music has been associated with mass shootings. So he actually had a statement to MTV at the time, and he said, I had no idea that my music releases would somehow offensively relate to the incoming death of JFK Jr. or the mass shootings. So I'm thinking, this guy's music, like David Bowie and other musicians we could mention, often track with the psyops, just like the movies do. And so One Assassination Under God, and then there's Ye. We've talked about Ye, another musician whose music seems to be fitting this incoming storyline. But anyway, just bringing it up that One Assassination Under God is something we analyze, and this might be it. This might be the one it was referencing.
Do you think maybe some of these people perhaps are signaling without knowing?
Not anymore. I used to. Now I think they have security clearances. I think that like stuff like I don't think that they're all in the know. Direct. They don't have to be, but I do think there are some who are consciously being used, letting their artwork being used in order to serve the system, and I think that they're fully apprised of it. I don't think these are just coincidental alignments. I think it's a secret society. It's a security clearance thing, and I think that they've got Duper's Delight all over them.
But couldn't they be carrying something on, having been influenced without knowing what they're doing.
Well, okay, that's the thing that was brought up with this Tempest. The person said, I don't buy the argument in this case that they're merely reflecting and seeing on the world because it's too precise, the timing wise. And so the timing of it has me think that they're being instrumentalized. Like maybe they don't know everything. Maybe they're just being told, hey, we need some more music to promote suicide or androgyny or mass murders or whatever it is. And they just do it. It could be like that. But with the directors, there's got to be some conscious participation in it. So it's an open question, but because it is associated,
Whomever the director might be.
and I think with various directors, you can take away various degrees of plausible deniability. James Cameron is an insider. He helped direct 9/11. Same thing with Stanley Kubrick. I can say that confidently. 2020, I think Ellen Moore was one of his directors. And Psyop by Psyop, we're getting better, I think. Because when you make the connection between the content and the event, you can call out people as metascripters. Jordan Peele, the guy who wrote Leave the World Behind, which was produced by the Obamas. So the fact that the Obamas produced a movie with copious predictive programming in and of itself is highly suggestive of conscious participation by everybody involved. But the musicians likely have more leeway here, plausible deniability. Yeah, busy, exactly. Operation Mockingbird. You have CIA in every newsroom. Why wouldn't you have CIA in every recording studio that's going to reach the mass audiences?
I've never seen it.
Tavistock, exactly.
Immediately, like
Jim Morrison, remember his dad, Admiral Morrison? And I'm not saying Jim Morrison faked his death at 27 with and came back as Rush Limbaugh.
See,
You don't
like
even have to go
I
that far.
prefaced this before, though. Like as soon as you go against anything, then people will immediately go, "There's something wrong with his voice." What has he said? I mean, it's like any excuse to fucking. It's mental, man. Because it's really difficult to have a different opinion in this realm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it really is. Like, I mean, to your point though, I used to think that these musicians, like people, like for example, there was those rappers in a group called Coup. I think it's called the Coup. And they had an album where they're detonating bombs on the Twin Towers, and it came out on 9/11.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And so at the time, I remember people saying, well, the artists are tapping into the zeitgeist. And then I see their other music video, which has this class warfare theme where they're like Dorothy and the Scarecrow and the Tin Man, and they behead the Monopoly Man looking Wizard of Oz. But it's this class warfare theme. And I'm looking at them as, okay, this is ideological music meant to influence certain demographics. They don't have to know what is or isn't fake. They just have to be receptive to being propaganda vessels or conduits. And we see this with podcasters on the alt-right all the time, where on the same day, they all push the same talking points. So I think we're looking at people who are basically sellouts more than just being inspired.
Oh, I mean, yeah, absolutely. When it comes to podcasters, it's almost across the board, and I feel terrible for not knowing that when I was younger. You know.
Well, when I started looking at this stuff critically, I started looking it up where I would hear a very specific talking point in Discord, and I know, and it's like, okay, this person said what this podcaster said, and this person, and I started calling it current thingism, where they all had a current thing.
Yeah,
and
exactly. That's how you start noticing it. Yeah.
But then, like, where's the source? And you can eventually kind of figure out that, yeah, you're looking at a lot of operatives who might have a lot of leeway and creativity, but they also have an agenda that they're pushing.
There's a classic one, Tim, where, I mean, God knows, I don't watch Joe Rogan. I watch him now and again if he has an interesting musician on or something. but a whole bunch of years ago, I guess when this was all happening, and he had Duncan Trussell on, and I know that they had NASA suits on, so that might put it down to like 2 or 3 appearances. But almost like the first thing that Duncan says to him, and they're like conspiracy buddies. He says, I keep hearing you're controlled by the CIA." And the way Joe Rogan replies, it'll be really easy to find for anybody if they're listening to this. It's right at the start. It's just like so fake. It's like, I mean, he's all he's just a fake guy, you know. He's
Guard,
so obviously like not that there's anything wrong with it, but like a closeted homosexual, you know.
I don't know, but what I am certain of though, and Lean Dion points out, comedians in the conspiracy sphere are another interesting category
Well,
of
I think it's
propaganda.
almost all of them. Almost all of them. You
And
know,
look
there
at
are
Roseanne. Look how
yeah.
Roseanne has been. So Roseanne, interestingly, was like drafted into the Q movement. She became a big part of that. But then when the I think when they went too far against Israel, she kind of pushed back. But the whole time, Q is based on blood libel. I mean, she was moving in.
Well, her first
So,
big thing was racist, wasn't it? Which
well,
was true. No, like
she was going into.
that woman looked like a movie star, you know.
I'm just saying she went into red pill wokeism pretty deep. But the instant the red pill wokeism was revealed as actually containing J pill, she balked at it and backed away. And now you have this major schism, and that's just a symptom of it, between the woke right and the regular right. And so this is all very much, I think, obviously controlled. And the civil war on the right is contrived. They just set it up. And what Turning Point USA represents is the mainstream. But the conspiracy theorists think that he was turning against it and he was going to lean towards the woker side ever since 10/7, where he had basically accused Israel of standing down to justify an ethnic cleansing. So for him to say that to his demographic would make him look like a threat to the system. They'd have to shut up. And I think that's the line that Tucker Carlson's run with. I think they're all running with it. But anyway, it's just another bit of JFK where they ultimately have the scapegoat for the people who are buying into the official state approved conspiracy theory. By the way, anybody else, before we go here, I am going to premiere this on YouTube. But if anybody else has anything to say, just again, thanks again. We've been here for quite some time, almost 4 hours. So I think we have enough for the recording, and we will do this weekly. And I'll take suggestions on topics. But I think we've covered a lot of ground here. But by the time we've listened to this and have assessed the comments, a lot more will have come out. And I want to consolidate all of the best reasons to doubt the official story or reasons to believe Charlie Kirk is alive. I want to have a definitive list that we can point to. And the video is fine, I think, but I don't want this to be exclusively about staring at videos frame by frame. I think we should be able to take this down from a metascript perspective, from a perspective of it being staged and having all the hallmarks of being staged, but without having to rely on what looks to outsiders as pure subjective opinions. And oh, by the way, when I upload the video, they also give me the transcripts and the comments. So what I am going to do also, I'm going to take the comment file, which will be a text file. I'm going to upload it into Chat GPT or Grok, and I'll basically say, could you put all the comments in a organized format? You know, in other words, that you can just like a blog post or something with bullet points. So all the comments that you put here will be included in the final breakdown. But we'll certainly do this at least once a week. until I
don't
get my
mean any
regular phone
harm.
system back on. Yeah.
I don't mean any harm. You know, I know people don't like me.
No, actually, this has been very helpful because what we're trying to do here is just, to me, this is all about the facts, and it's not about us agreeing. And I don't care if people disagree. I want to understand the reasoning behind their disagreement because I think
Yeah.
that we have to make our argument stronger.
No, I think it's cool, man. Like, I've tried it in other places and just got like just hit a brick wall. Like, you must be absolutely mental if you think that. And I've just had to jump ship. You know, I've done that with various discords and stuff. And this is the. I mean, I've followed you for a whole bunch. I've heard you talk for years. You know, so I'm only just getting in touch now, and yeah, I guess we're 50-50 definitely in the right direction.
Yeah, I think you're a good fit. I mean, that's what the think tank is for. We want to get people who have the off-world stage perspective, and I'm fine as long as we're like off-world stage. We don't have to agree on anything. We're using the same basic operating system, which is reason, logic, and and we're willing to admit when we're wrong. Like I was wrong about the bullet hole thing becoming a mic, and it's because we are trying to assess the best facts available at the time, and we have to recognize that sometimes we don't have enough information to know it's real, or enough information to know it's fake, and we have to have that tolerance for ambiguity. And this think tank is certainly for that. And most of the people here are pretty much on the same sheet. Yeah, so a think tank is better than an echo chamber. I have no agenda here other than, I guess, objective media analysis with a wider perspective about the significance of, and I think this is hard to overstate, the significance of nonstop manipulated news that becomes our quote history. Like, okay, we can talk about mud flood 200 years ago, or missing 1,000 years here, or history's fake, but we can prove right now that real time recent history is fake. And I think that's a stronger starting point than trying to go too far back, because
absolutely.
And I think that could also just be misdirection anyway. But we're not misdirected here. I think we're right on target, which is why none of our perspectives are ever repeated by the people who are guardrailing this stuff. We don't exist on their world stage. That's why I'm not even worried about censorship. Yeah, censor all the conspiracy theorists. What do I care? We're not conspiracy theorists.
If I had to say one last thing, I would just say, my God, please, everyone, just try and gen up and look up as much as you can about practical effects that were done during the 60s and the 70s, and you'll just find that they're just getting used the same way today. Old Hollywood magic works, and has worked for 100 years.
Yeah, that's one thing, because people think about deep fakes and CGI faces, but no, the hyper realistic masks that are foolproof have been in use for more than 50 years, and they weren't even declassified until 2015. But these masks are so realistic that they had some lady famously walk into the head of the Department of Disguise, CIA, walks into George H.W. Bush's office, and he thinks it's his secretary. And the mask was so convincing and realistic that when they photographed the scene, they blurred her out, because that wasn't meant for the public to know. So it's likely that your parents or grandparents grew up around people they saw on TV who don't actually exist. Like, we've already been deep faked. We were deep faked way before CGI.
And I think even in real life situations where they were supposed to see people, I'm convinced that was the same as well. you know, like real in real life, in real time, made up people to look like whoever, you know, and use a mixture of that and film to have whatever you want, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Like we are already deep faked. We were born deep faked, and they've shown these like, oh, AI is going to deep fake us. It's like, no, we're already in Videodrome. We're already in Westworld. You know, we're the ones noticing patterns, and everyone else is like, that doesn't look like anything to me. But no, we've recognized the patterns, and we're at the stage, I think, where there's enough of us that we don't have to necessarily even consider seriously the opinions of people who are still stuck in Trutherville. You know, at this point, they're just another branch of mainstream. They can be disregarded. We're a totally different entity. And that's why we need to do this, because the off-world stage perspective could easily have 10,000 people. And imagine what we could do with that. You know, even with 1,000 people engaged in a live discussion, it would bring a lot more information to the table
It'd
much
be
faster.
amazing, man. Yeah.
But even with what we have, it's pretty quick. I call us a fake news wood chipper, because something happens and it looks real, but you have enough people who are involved, and it doesn't take long
Yep.
uh,
Just take it
to
apart. Mm.
start pulling those threads. Anyway, thanks everyone. Appreciate your time, and I will be premiering this on YouTube maybe tonight. Maybe I'll if I can get the upload processed, I might just put it on tonight. A bunch of comments.
It was good to speak to you, man. You know.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks everyone. Thanks comments. Thanks CGI. And again, I'll put the breakdown of the comments with the video on the blog post. So all of your comments, all the additional facts that you put out there for our consideration will be added to the mix. All right, let me go ahead and stop the recording. So this has been the first, whatever we're going to call this. I'll have to come up with a name, but these IPS think tanks that we do on Zoom are going to be a series. So this is the first of them, and we'll probably have another one same time next week, if not soon.